Okay.
All right.
Good night, then.
Good night, then.
It's an early morning recording session for me and Ashley.
Yep.
All because we love you guys so much and we want to get you this podcast.
Oh, Kristen.
What? It's true.
It is true. We're just two very different people, that's all. But I love you for it.
Oh, shoot. I need to adjust my mic still. Hang on.
It's 8 a.m. and I'm like not awake and all groggy, and Kristen's like dancing in her seat.
You know,
oh, because we love you so much.
Listen. If Jason was awake right now, it's funny. He got up before I did, but he and Jack are napping on the couch now. So
okay.
He would tell you that that's an absolute falsehood. That I'm a total grouch in the mornings.
Yeah, and I'm just saying, we're just so different personality-wise. Like, that's just not generally. I mean, of course I get excited about stuff, and you guys hear me excited on the podcast all the time.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
I think you're more relatable than I am, honestly, with the messages we get.
Maybe.
People are like,
thank God you guys are all weirdos like me.
People are like, oh my gosh, that thing that Ashley said on your last episode. Oh my gosh, that's so me. I'm totally Ashley with that author. Oh my gosh, I was totally Ashley like that with my boyfriend at 16. Even one person, it was so cute. And now I can't remember who it was, but they were like, Kristen, I love you, but sorry, I totally am with Ashley on like this whole list. And I was like, you're so funny. You like don't need to apologize.
Yeah, don't worry, you guys. We know that in general, you're gonna relate to one of us more than the other, most likely.
It was
That's
just really
the way that it goes.
It was cute. I was like, that's so funny. I was like, I know you. I love, first of all, that most people start messages out now like, hey, Kristen. Like, they just know that it's probably me who's answering.
At this point, if I were to go onto our Instagram and start looking at messages, I would be so lost because you have a dialogue with people at this point. So I'm just going to start saying what I've heard another podcaster say, and I'm just going to start saying that I don't have access to our social media.
Well, and I always tell people too, I always tell people, if you're talking to Ashley, most likely she will sign it with an A or her name. Like,
that's true. Yeah.
Because you'll do that with tweets sometimes too. Like, if you actually go out there and like tweet something, and it usually will like go, well, I call it Dizi viral. It's not like viral, but yeah, you'll like think of this like really like cheeky tweet, and then it'll go like Dizi viral, and then that's it. You don't tweet anything else for like
for another month or two. Yeah. That's how I social media.
But hey, it works. It works for us. So, yeah. Anyways, I had some housekeeping. I did not write it all down, so I'm probably going to miss stuff, but that's okay.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah. I just wanted to, I did want to say like a thank you to everyone who sends. We get so many more people now, and I appreciate it so much because they kind of start to do a little bit of the research for me. But like, people will be like, oh my gosh, like one girl, and now of course I'm probably not going to have the screen name saved correctly, but it was so cute because I immediately noticed when watching the live of this episode that we actually saw the page number that he was reading from this time when he reads from the book. So I immediately was like, oh, better look that up, like make a note to look that up, you know, like we did with the Little Prince for those pages.
Yeah.
And someone had already messaged and was like, I don't know if you saw, but we actually got to see like the page number, and like with your numerology thing, like I totally thought like, oh my gosh, like gotta look this up. Like it was
I love that it's become kind of an interactive thing.
Yes, it made me so happy. I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, yes, I totally realized that. Like the second, I was like, I'm right there with you. I saw that and was like, oh, write down that page number because you've got to research that number. And I love that people are like picking up on it and like also doing it. Like it just, with all kinds of stuff, even like the flowers, people are like, I'm sure you already looked this up, but hey, here's some information on those flowers Edo was talking about. Like, I just love it so much. It just makes me really happy that I'm like, we're like all in this craziness together and like looking for hidden meanings and all of that. So anyways, I just wanted to thank everybody who reached out and did that because it like really made me happy. And then I think that was it for like big time homework. Everything else was just like kind of random. Like just a heads up, you guys, that I didn't even tell Ashley this, but next week's episode might have to be a little late. Like it'll probably come out later on Tuesday. I'm not sure yet, but I just want to give you guys a heads up so you're not like, where's the podcast come Monday, come like Monday evening. Because we have family in town, which I had mentioned last week, but last week they were staying with my sister-in-law and her husband. Well, they're on like a little 2-day trek right now. And then when they come back to where we are, they're going to stay with Jason and I. So I'll have actual family like in my house. So it might make for like recording. And even I'm trying not to be a baby about this, but it means I probably won't get to live watch on Wednesday because I would basically be a hermit hiding in, for like 4 hours, Wednesday morning. And I thought they weren't coming back until Wednesday. So I was like, oh, no big deal. Like they won't be, but they're coming back Tuesday, tomorrow. Okay. So I was like, okay, they'll like full on be here Wednesday. And that's like their first full day here with us. So I'm like, I probably can't. So I'm like, I'm going to have to stay off social media because I don't want to get spoiled because I feel like it's kind of going to be a big episode. Although I feel like I've been saying that every week for like the last 4 weeks. So I've also decided I'm going to stop saying, I hope Edda finds out this week because I've been saying that for like literally the last like 5 episodes. Like, oh, I bet she'll find out this week. So I'm like, I'm just going to stop predicting and hoping for that. And when it happens, it happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, so just a heads up to you guys. And I think that was it for like anything big. If I remember, then I'll mention it when I remember.
Okay.
Do you have anything?
I just want to say thank you so much to everybody who has been reaching out to me to make sure I'm okay because of the fact that Ollie, aka Osman, has gotten married and
like shock of shocks. Did we even have an inkling he was in a relationship?
You know what's funny is that all of his beautiful pictures that he would post out on his adventures and stuff, I was always thinking, who is taking these pictures of him? And lo and behold, he has had a partner this whole time.
What do you know?
He's a married man. But really, really, truly, I was cracking up that people are like, has anyone checked on Ashley?
I know.
Is Ashley okay?
It was so funny. And in one of, I don't know if you saw it because I didn't tag you in the comment and it got buried in like replies on the thread. But I had replied and I was like, I promise you guys, I'm sure she's fine. Trust me, Eric's pretty great. No,
and I think everybody knows that I wouldn't actually trade my husband for anybody in the world.
Right. Oh no, you're totally right.
It's just such a funny, like, I just love the running gag, and
me too.
It made me happy that people were reaching out.
That when you finally did open up social media, you had like 18 tags of your name being like, "Are you okay? Are you okay?"
I was cracking up.
Has anybody checked on Ashley?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, it was funny when I said that. Someone else replied. I think it was Moran, and she was like, "Oh, okay." She's like, and like we wouldn't all be checking. Like you wouldn't be happy for Karem if this happened. And I was like, of course I would. I would even send him a wedding gift. Like, and then she replied back with a gift. She's like, oh, I know what wedding gift you would send him. And it's a woman popping out of a giant cake. Like, she's like, this would be you.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah.
But truly, I hope that they're very happy. And yeah.
And props to them for hiding a relationship from the public eye.
From the Turkish media.
This entire time. Yes. Yeah. Because he has never, I mean, unless they have like really crazy good lawyers who just pay these people off. We've never seen footage of him like being hounded or questioned or anything. And I feel like that would have surfaced, if that were the case. So, just further proves if you really, really, really want to, there are ways to completely hide your relationship. So, for all the hopefuls out there that are still hanging on to the John Dem ship, like,
I know,
keep on keeping on. One day, like years from now.
I can't help but hope, honestly.
I know, me too. So
that's all. Just a funny housekeeping for me.
Well, that was a good housekeeping. I love it. So anyhow, okay. So, I watched that Mad event this week too. That whole live thing they did. Mm-hmm. And it was funny because at first I was like, oh my gosh, I feel so official because you had to like fill out this registration and you basically have to be like some form of media to like get in. So of course I was like, oh, we're in digital. What did I call digital media is what because we are technically. I was like, I'm not lying. And I used the name of our podcast as like I was like, well, I guess if we get denied, I think honestly they were letting anyone in who registered. I don't think they were like checking to make sure it was legit, but yeah, it was cool because I realized I was like, I'm pretty sure Hyundai understands English. Like, I know we've never heard her speak it, but unless some way off camera, someone was like translating stuff for her that we didn't see.
Okay.
She didn't answer in English, which I mean, I don't blame her. If I had even a good grasp on the Turkish language in an interview like that, and I could speak in English, I probably would too. Like, in my native tongue. Because there were people online who were like, why wasn't she speaking English? And I'm like, excuse me. How about the fact that she even maybe knows a second language is incredible, but
like, she doesn't have to speak English if she doesn't feel like it.
Yeah. But she seemed to understand like when Kerem was answering, because of course he spoke perfect English.
Right.
And it was so cute because he has this like nervous habit of like, he was like playing with his rings that were on his finger, like pulling them off and on and like twisting them. Like he has these funny little nervous tics that were adorable. But also too, I was like, man, can we please have Serkan in more of like Kerem's wardrobe, please? Because it just was like, I want to see Serkan in jeans. Like, I love a man in a suit, but like he still was dressed very nicely. I could totally see it working for Serkan. Like not being too casual. But he had jeans on and I don't remember his shirt, but like he had like this nice jacket blazer coat thing over it. Like anyways, I just was like, Serkan in less suits, please, now that we've seen Kerem all nice and casual and cozy and comfy. Anyways, it was really cool. I'm hoping that it means good things for the Dizi because this was them like internationally introducing it, so to speak, and all of that. So I'm not crazy about the title they're using internationally. Love is in the air. I kind of feel like they should have just kept you knock on my door, but whatever. I'm not the marketing expert. So anyways, I'm hoping it means really good things for the show, and it was cool to watch. And if for some reason you guys haven't seen that, I actually did screen record Hyundai and Kerem's whole section, and I did put it up on our IGTV channel. So you guys can watch that there if for some reason you haven't found it anywhere else. So nice. I just wanted to throw that out there. But other than that, I think we were probably good to start talking about the episode.
Okay, awesome.
So you want to start?
Yeah. So we get the run in after Eda has left when she's just finished talking to Aydan. And then, of course, Eda overhears when Serkan sees that she's there and then goes and kind of scolds his mom. And so she hears very obviously that there's another reason for them breaking up other than what she's been told. So after Serkan leaves, Eda confronts Aydan, and she poor Idon is totally caught off guard. And she's
I know.
like, crap. And good on her. She just keeps telling her, you should talk to Serkan. I can't tell you anything. I really can't say.
Mm-hmm.
And to be fair to Idon, I think that's a good thing for her to have said.
Oh, I totally agree.
Yeah, because it's not her truth to tell.
Right.
And I think that her pointing Eda back to Serkan is just the best thing for everybody.
Yeah.
So, but Eda won't leave her alone. And Idon ends up saying, she ends up lying and saying that it's because of her. And she told Serkan that they don't fit together. And of course, Eda doesn't believe her.
Well, and part of me is like, I wonder if Idon purposely chose that lie because maybe she knew Eda wouldn't believe it. Like,
Right.
But it would at least get her off of Idon's back. Like, okay, you're clearly not going to tell me what the reason is.
Right.
But at least she didn't tell her something believable enough that it made Eda go, oh, okay, like, and drop
Right.
it. But anyways, sorry.
Exactly. No, you're good. So Serkan sees her walking back after she goes and finds her keys. And
Okay, thank you for mentioning that because it was the third time I watched this episode that I finally realized, like, I was like, did they just like film a couple shots and then forget something? Because it kind of makes it look like she's just walking back and forth aimlessly and lost. But when I was watching it last night, finally, I was like, oh, because she had to walk back to actually go get her keys from where they were. But it made it kind of look like she went the wrong way because they show her walking off screen.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden she's walking back on screen from that direction, almost like, oh, oops, I went the wrong way. And
okay.
I was like, why did they do that? It makes it look like she's lost, and she's obviously been there plenty of times. But yeah, it took me until the third time to realize, oh, she had to actually physically go retrieve her keys. So I'm glad you said that because I was like, I wonder if other people were confused about that too.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's funny because they do show her when she first arrives, last episode, when she first arrived to talk to Idon, she's got her purse in one hand and her keys in the other. She sticks her purse next to her and she throws her keys on the table. So there's no, lack of continuity or anything with that.
Right.
I kind of went back afterwards because I was like, what do you mean she left her keys? Because when she's checking a purse, it's obvious she left her keys. But I was thinking, did they show that or are we just supposed to assume it? And they actually showed it.
That's good because I usually toss my keys in my purse. So my first thing would have been like, oh, come on, they were in your purse. Like,
that's how I am. That's where my keys go to. So anyway, so after she gets her keys, Serkan sees her and he confronts her, and because Idon's like, she heard us. And essentially he just tells her it was his decision because she's like, what's the other reason? I heard you guys talking. And he just says it was his decision and it's not going to change anything because everything is over between them.
So part of me is like, okay, I guess at least you didn't just flat out lie to her and say there wasn't a reason. But he did his very classic Serkan deflecting. Like,
non-answer.
Right. Like where he doesn't really address what she's asking him.
Right.
I do like that he wasn't like trying to figure out what Idon said and just agree with it. Like, well, I don't know what my mom told you, but it doesn't change anything. It doesn't blah, blah, blah. So she clearly knows that the reason she already didn't believe is not the reason. But part of me too is like, okay, what we know about Eda in 17 episodes, nothing about the statement, just stop digging, says to me, like, I know she says, okay, I'll stop.
Right.
But I'm like, you're not really gonna, are you? Because, like, nothing about who you are says that you will. And to me, all that was is, and at me, if that were me, I'd be like, yeah, this is further confirmation that there is something to dig for, and you're not going to tell me. Like, you're not handing me a shovel, so I guess I'll go do it myself with my two bare hands. Like, just the stubbornness in me.
And it's still a sketchy answer for him to say, and it's still a non-answer.
Yeah.
So I'm with you. I would be surprised if she didn't keep digging. At the same time, she's probably so tired.
Yeah.
So
well, and if you're being told by the man you love but are trying to hate actively, that it wouldn't change anything.
Right.
Yeah, I guess I could see it being like, okay, well then why bother?
Right.
Yeah, I can see it. So, yeah, I guess I'm just so like, I've just been so like, I want her to find out. I want her to find out. But I'm like, okay, clearly she's just going to find out whenever Ayşe decides she's going to find out.
Right.
And so I'm going to stop being like, oh, you know what? This little thing in the fragment right here is probably her finding out. It's probably her demanding an answer. Because obviously last week I was like, the face grab. She's telling him there's something. There's this. And obviously when we get there, it's an entirely different situation. So I was like, okay, I am going to stop trying to find these little hints in the fragments that say she's going to find out, because I literally have been saying that since episode 14, and we're now going to be going into episode 18 later this week. Which did you watch either of those fragments? I almost texted you last night to say like, make sure you watch them.
I did watch both.
Okay, because I was like, I want to talk about them at the end.
Episode.
Okay, cool. Well then we'll dig into that more there. But anyways, all that to be said, she basically is like, okay, I won't dig anymore. Right. And kind of at that point, she just kind of storms off and leaves, right? Gets in her car and takes off. And I love this because we got a really good workout scene, but I loved that it was for Edda, like mostly. I mean, we did get Serkan. He's at home boxing with Engin, but it was mostly focused on like Edda and her frustration and her letting out her anger and her hurt and all of that out on, well, not just the punching bag, but Fifi too, because Fifi was, doing those, I don't know what the proper name of those is, but
whatever, the punching pads.
Yes.
Who knows what their real name is.
And you'd think I'd know because I'm literally watching Karem's boxing Dizi right now, but I don't. So I don't even know the Turkish name for them. Like, you'd think maybe I'd even know that. But anyways, those little pads people wear so that you can punch them in their hands. And it's intense. Like, it's...
Well, and the reason it makes me wonder if she's just kind of tired and if she is going to maybe force herself to stop digging is because she says, I'm a fool. Why am I still running after him when he just lets me go and lets me go? So it makes me wonder if she's maybe she has to kind of convince herself to stop digging and to just forget about it.
Yeah. And
or to
honestly,
try.
I can get that. Like, I can relate to that. Like, because I think too, sometimes you can get so fixated on like finding a reason or finding just anything that will make you feel somewhat better or like vindicated or whatever. Like, that then, that becomes even your sole focus when it's like, okay, or I could just stop expelling all my energy. Expending all my energy on this.
Yeah, I probably both would work.
Okay. It just all of a sudden I was like, is that the right word? But yeah, so I get it. She's tired. And poor Fifi and Jaren are tired too. They're like,
yes. Oh my gosh.
They ran out of
so funny.
They ran out of fuel a lot earlier than Edda, which again makes sense because they're not being fueled by hurt and rage, and we all know what a powerful motivator hurt and anger can be.
Yeah.
So they're even exhausted. Like Jaren's like, I just said let's go for a walk. Like Fifi's like, oh my gosh. Like they're trying to keep up with her and support her, but they're also like, holy crap, like, are we done yet? And kind of the same with Serkan and Engin. Engin's like barely actively participating in this.
Oh my gosh.
Like,
so funny.
I mean, God bless him for being there for his friend. But he's like, isn't he just like kind of lifting weights a little? Like,
yeah.
Yeah, and Serkan,
he's just doing bicep curls with his little weights.
Mm.
But his shirt's all wet, like he's sweaty.
So funny. So yeah, and Serkan's basically just like venting, like it doesn't matter that I got rid of all her stuff. She's everywhere.
Yeah.
Like I got rid of her presence, so to speak, but also I couldn't get rid of her. Like,
right.
And so she's everywhere I go. Doesn't matter that I don't have any reminders of her, all that kind of stuff. And Angin's like, okay, as if that would make a difference.
Right.
Like, oh, okay, even if she wasn't around, like, it would help. Like, basically telling him he's an idiot without saying he's an idiot. Like,
right.
And yeah, because Angin knows. Knows. I didn't take screenshots of any of this, so I don't know if there's anything specific or.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
At this point, Edda is still going at it. The girls are sitting on the sidelines just watching her now. She's like doing those little tire jumps and like boxing moves with the weights in her hands. But eventually, she kind of gets nauseated. Like, she kind of is like, whoa, like, maybe just overdid it or whatever. And, but she wants to keep going. She like just keeps wanting to keep going. And the girls are like, okay. So this was our Edda is nauseous or nauseated, number 1. Like, there's so many times it happens. Like, she gets these bouts of nausea.
Yeah.
So that's happening. We do get a quick once over to F.A. sitting in a bar. He's on the phone with what is clearly his mystery partner, who I'm just going to keep calling Baba Ane until we are proven otherwise. And basically, the whole point of this scene was just for him to say the line that it's time for him to teach Serkan a lesson. Like, I'm an equal partner. I have equal say. And so I'm about to show him that that's the case. So we know there's something up his sleeve. We don't know what. It was not what I was expecting.
Me either.
At all.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of thoughts about that when we get there. But yeah, so that's our first clue. Then we get
breakfast.
Yes.
Yeah. And then Edda gets sick again because she smells something. I think it's the cheese, and she can't stand the smell.
Cheese that Melo brought, apparently, but we still, she's still off screen, but.
That's funny. But this is the first inkling and discussion of the possibility that she's pregnant, because they're like, oh yeah, she got nauseated while we were working out, and then now she's sensitive to smells. No big deal. And it's Ifair who is actually the one who suggests, is she pregnant? And it's funny because you see Jaren and Fifi, they all go, no, and then they take a second to think, and then they have to really convince themselves that she's not pregnant. So this kind of starts this whole issue that we see throughout the entire episode.
Yes. So then what did I write?
Oh, we're back at the company.
Oh, I wrote PDA. PDA, Angin, and Pearl. But the way I wrote it, it looks like I wrote the word port, P-O-R-T. I was like, what did I write? PDA, public displays of affection.
Yeah, I guess Angin is a hair man because he is all over her hair.
Him and John. And it's funny because she's not really fighting it, but also she's kind of like, what are you, like, we're at work, what are you doing? But she's kind of reveling in it a little bit.
Oh yeah, you totally can tell that she loves it.
But then we enter in, okay, it's funny because I kind of go back and forth with Pearl this episode, because I sort of was like, I feel like the whole situation that's about to go down got way blown up because of her reaction to it. Like, and maybe I just feel for Angin because Ashley can attest to the fact that I am very clueless, or was, I should say, very clueless. Like, Ashley would tell me all the time, like, that guy was flirting with you, or that guy, and I'm like, no, he wasn't. He was just being nice. Like, what are you talking about? He's just being polite. Like, and you guys, Ashley was always right. No, and please don't take this. I'm not saying like, oh, I just totally got hit on all the time. Like, not like that. But like when there would be an instance of something where I'm just honestly thinking it's some innocent interaction, and she's like, no, like he was absolutely flirting with you. Yeah. And all this stuff. Like, so maybe I just feel for Angin because I'm like, I probably am Angin to an extent with that stuff. But I just felt like her like, it's not like he wasn't flirting back with her. Like,
right.
because this assistant shows up for these new clients that we're about to meet. And she very clearly is fixated on Engin when she sees him.
Right.
And
it kind of continues throughout the episode. But yeah, Engin is kind of clueless. And Pearl is jealous.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I think I wasn't totally sure what to think of the whole situation.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't really upset at either one of them.
Right. I wasn't either. I mean, I was kind of like when they're at dinner later that night. I guess we can just talk about this situation.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a few different times she comes back and forth to the business, and Pearl will purposely say the wrong name, like and
Erdem too. He was calling her
Erdem started doing it because he was like, oh crap, she might come for my job, because at one point she says she might be leaving her current employers and might need a new job if you ever want to change any employees around here. And so then Erdem gets nervous because Engin actually makes a comment like, oh yeah, I might want to, because Erdem is Erdem,
right?
So it's funny. And, but then like when he and Pearl are at dinner that night, she's kind of, I don't want to say sulking, but she's not being herself. She's not as excited about the food like she is. It's one of her favorite places, all this stuff. And he notices, and she basically calls him out and is like, well, you were being clueless, and basically encouraging her. And he's like, what? Like, no, I wasn't. Like, I was being nice. Like, and, even if she does like handsome men, like he's like, I'm not interested. And she's like, well, she didn't know that. Like, and so I get it as a partner wanting to be like, yeah, you need to make that very clear, not just be a passive participant.
Right.
So I get that. But then part of me too was like, but he really wasn't. There's a difference between like cluelessness and just flat out like showing interest, like,
right.
So part of me is like, I felt bad for Engin, but I got where Pearl was coming from.
Yeah.
But I was just kind of like, are you overreacting a little bit? But then I always am like, I don't want to be like, I want to be like supportive of her, because I'm like, well, as a woman, I do get that. Like, I get having that initial reaction. So I don't want to call her like hysterical or overreactive. But yeah, I kind of went back and forth with this entire situation.
Yeah, I think this is kind of just more proof that Pearl is not well versed in having a relationship, and that she is needing to adjust to this. I mean, Engin has been in love with her for 10 years, and it has been ready for this relationship for a long time. Pearl, not so much.
That's true.
I think that this is all kind of going to be part of their adjustment as a couple, and how they develop communication and the way their relationship is going to work. Because, yeah, she's just always had work and she's had friends, and who knows if she's ever been in a relationship before.
That's true.
I think this is kind of them figuring all that out and how to navigate it and all that kind of stuff. Plus, they're still being secretive about it.
Even though everybody knows. It's like,
right.
Because,
it's kind of just, to me, it's kind of them figuring it all out.
Okay.
Maybe this was a good move, actually.
Okay.
For someone to show interest in Engin, so that Pearl's like, oh, wait a second. No, he's my man. Like, we're together, and kind of taking that stance and being more, not that she wasn't on board, but you know what I mean.
Publicly on board, I guess you could say. Yeah, because what winds up happening is when they're at the party that ends up being the last part of the episode, it's for those new clients. And so she's their assistant. So she's there. And Pearl basically is like, okay, listen, if you don't think she's interested in you, like, she made it very clear to Layla earlier when Layla was trying to offer her coffee that, she hates coffee, but she'll take green tea. So she's like, go ask her to coffee. Go ask her out to coffee. And if she says yes, then you'll know I'm right. And I'm not seeing things. I'm not making this up. Now, what Engin probably should have done was said, I don't need to ask her to coffee because it doesn't matter if she's interested in me. I'm not interested in her.
Right.
And, but I get it. Also the egging on and like, okay, fine, I'm going to prove this to you once and for all. Because he does end up going and very reluctantly asking her to coffee. And she very enthusiastically accepts the invitation. And now he's like, well, what do I do now? Crap, I asked her to coffee. Now I actually have to take her to coffee, but I don't want to like give her false hope. And then also was like, now are you going to be mad at me because I have to take her to coffee, even though you're the one that told me to go and do this? Like, so, and the situation kind of leaves off there. We don't really get a conclusion to it. It's kind of stick a pin in it, and I'm sure we'll revisit it next episode. But, yeah. So I think that was I like what you said though. It's just them newly navigating whatever this is. So, anyways, so back to where we were, now we're basically, Gozde, who's this assistant we've been talking about, she is the client of this couple, Emre and Asle, and sorry, I don't remember how to pronounce their last name.
I think it's like Cafeciolu.
Okay. So they're basically, it's made clear that they're famous because Engin immediately is like, wait, they're coming here? Like, so they're well known in Turkey. And they're like, yeah. So, basically we find out that they're friends of Efe's. He's the one that kind of is bringing them in because after Eda's Jeep won't move from in front of the company, she and Serkan have a little bit of a run-in and wind up coming into the office, and he's kind of scolding her like, well, if you took care of it, then it wouldn't suffer. And she's like, oh, you're one to talk about taking care of things so that they don't suffer, which, I mean, yes, burn, that was deserved.
Yeah.
So basically,
so then Efe tells everybody. He greets them. He explains that, they were university friends. And, of course, Asle is his wife. And they want to update a house that got left to them by their parents. And it's going to be kind of a trial to see if they want to work with them with all these much bigger, projects that are all around the world.
Yes. And then we have a lot of Layla and Erdem bickering throughout this episode.
Yeah.
Their banter and stuff. So that's kind of happening right now as well. And then in the midst of all that, Asle and Emre show up and they have their baby with them. And I was like, oh my gosh, so they're starting to get like settled in this meeting room. And I just wrote, Emre is overbearing and I'm already not a fan. Like
he seems like a paranoid helicopter parent because he was like, where's the baby? And he kind of freaks out.
Yeah.
He goes to get the baby because the baby is in the other room. And that's not good enough, I guess. So Asle's like, fine. Well, like she says something like, oh, he's in postpartum right now. Which I thought was funny.
I did think that was funny. Because even Pirtle's like, oh, isn't that something only women get? And she's like, no, I don't even have time to get it because like I don't even have time to deal with postpartum stress because he's so stressed enough for the both of us that like
exactly. So we see pretty early on that they have some marital issues with that have kind of arisen ever since they've had this baby.
Yeah, they clearly parent differently. She's like not so much hovering, but yeah. He just rubbed me the wrong way from the get-go.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was supposed to be that way or if it was just the actor really, really doing his job of being an overbearing parent. But because even a few times when he's kind of scolding her about stuff, like even when he goes to get the baby, he's like, well, I told you not to leave him out of our sight. It just was kind of like, oh, I'm sorry. You told her not to leave. Like it,
He seems to think that she's supposed to be doing everything for the baby. Like changing him, feeding him, everything. So, yeah. I'm like, okay, cool. Except you're both his parents.
Yeah, you're both his parents, bro.
Change his diaper yourself, dude.
Seriously. Ugh, yeah. I can't handle stuff like that. But anyways, that's a whole other subject. But
so international projects. She explains.
Yes.
Yes. She says that they want to work with Serkan on international projects. And then, like I already said, use the house project as a trial. And she also was like, oh, and Efe, you mentioned your friend. And he's like, oh, Eda.
Mm-hmm.
And Serkan's like, what does Eda have to do with it? And she's like, well, I heard she's good at landscaping and we want to use her for the project too. So they're going to see if she's willing to do it. And I thought it was so funny because they're all like, well, if she agrees, then yeah, that's fine. Then she can do it. And she's like, oh, why wouldn't she agree? And they all side-eye each other.
Yep. Oh, so she's like, okay, well, it's time for me to be alone with Serkan. And then
my gosh.
And then they all look at her and she's like, the baby Serkan? Because their baby's name is Serkan. Did we mention that? Their baby's name is Serkan. And so they're like, oh, we get it, because she has to feed him. And so that kind of just dispels them a little bit. And it's funny, as the meeting's dispersing, Layla is outside the conference room in the main part of the office with Eda. And she's like, oh my gosh, I thought my assistant job was hard. Like, look at how these people run their assistant. She has to like take care of their kid too. She's like, can you imagine if I had to take care of Serkan's kid? And Serkan overhears that last part and is like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm like, oh, nothing. Just, I was talking about bebek because that's baby. But she's like, she means the district in Istanbul, which I thought was like a funny little pun to do. Like, oh no, I'm talking about the location, not a person. But then as she's walking off, she tells Eda, like, I'm going to make you some mint tea. It'll help settle your stomach, blah, blah, blah. So Serkan's little spidey senses are like, okay, you were just talking about taking care of my child. And now Eda doesn't feel good. Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And then Eda, like, is nauseated while she's in the middle of talking with Serkan. So she kind of bolts off to the bathroom.
Yeah. Because he had just told her about the project.
Yes. Like, and would you be okay with that? And she's like, yeah, why wouldn't I be like, and he's like, basically we'd be working together. She's like, well, yeah, like that's what's happening.
What else is new?
What else? Yeah, exactly. So she runs off into the bathroom. I wrote nauseated Eda part 3, this time co-starring Asle, because they run into each other in the bathroom.
Yeah, they're both super sick. And then Asle is like, oh my gosh, I think I'm pregnant again. I have all the same symptoms. I can't have another baby already.
Like, this one can't even say his name yet. Like, and we're already having a hard time adjusting. Like,
right. She just kind of spills to Eda. And she's like, listen, can you keep this between us? I don't want anybody to find out. I don't even know for sure. Mm-hmm. And Eda, of course, agrees. She's like, yes, of course. I won't tell anybody.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it, right?
Yep, that's it.
And then we have Serkan yelling for Layla.
Oh my gosh. I laughed so much this episode.
Listen, Kerem had so many GIF-worthy and meme-worthy moments this episode. I loved it. Like, I already made a few, like, but he...
I know. I agree.
He was so funny and expressive with his comedic timing.
Yes. Half the stuff he was doing, saying, his faces he was making, I was like, this is too good. I love this so much.
So good. So... he is like, what's going on with Eda? And Layla's like, oh, because she's stressing at first that he's like mad about something else.
I love the way she responds to him when he's all stern, and it's like she's bracing herself to be screamed at every single time. She's like, Serkan Bey, like, what is it? Go ahead. Go ahead, do it.
I'm ready. And then he's like, what's going on with Eda? And she's like, oh, she's just a little sick. Like, that's why I was making her tea.
Probably caught a cold.
Yeah, a cold or the flu, because she's kind of sensitive to smell right now, blah, blah, blah. So it kind of gets his wheels turning even more.
Yeah.
And he's like, listen, any changes, I want to hear about them. Like, basically, like, Layla, report to me back about Eda. Like,
well, then even Layla's like, changes? What do you mean changes? He's like, just tell me.
So then we switch over to Aydan and Seifi, or Ayse, as they apparently like to be called now. And they're attempting the gate because after the whole blow up with Eda, basically Aydan's like, I doubt she'll be coming back. And I don't want to be shameful and call and ask her, you know?
Right.
But Seifi's like, I'm not the person for this job. Like, you do better with her. Like, we don't do well with this because she can't walk through the gate. She feels too pressured. Seifi's not showing enough, you know, patience or whatever it is, you know?
Right.
But she's like, I don't want to bother Ada again after what went down. Like, it'd be too shameful.
Mm-hmm.
So we basically are kind of in limbo there with what's going to happen with that.
Yeah. So Serkan comes to get Eda because they're going to go to the house and get started on the project. And again, she has a little bout of nausea. And he's like, are you okay? So she's like, I'm fine. I was kickboxing yesterday and I'm a little sore. And it's
I loved this part.
Because I was cracking up because this felt very like I also have a dog. Because he's like, oh, I kickbox too. Maybe we should box together, fight, you know, spar with each other. And she's like, no, I'm fine. I beat you up plenty yesterday.
See, okay, so my subs said when he's like, oh, I box too, and he's like, you know, if you wanted to work out together sometime, you could hit me. Like, I was taking it more as like, hey, if you have anger you want to take out on me, you can hit me anytime you want.
Okay.
That's why I was like, oh my gosh, I loved this, that he was like, go ahead, beat me up. Like, I know I deserve it. But that was her response then was, showed the same thing. Like, oh yeah, trust me, I beat you up enough yesterday. She's like, so storms funny. Off. I would not hate a boxing scene between the two of them.
Me either.
But anyhow, so then off they go. They get in the car and she does eventually have him stop at the pharmacy. And it's funny because you can tell these scenes were filmed differently because when they leave Art Life, it's perfectly dry and not at all wet. But when they pull up to the pharmacy, the car has clearly been rained on.
Yeah.
But anyways, so he's like, well, why are we stopping at the pharmacy? She's like, I'm nauseous. I'm just going to get some pills for nausea. And he's like, no, let's call the doctor right now. Like his on-call doctor person. Uh-huh. She's like, for what? She's like, I'm just going to get some medicine. It's fine. And she like gets out of the car to go in and get it. Mm-hmm. And he calls the doctor anyways, of course. And is like, do you think Ada could be okay? Like, you know, she's nauseous. She's sensitive to smell. She's this. And the doctor's like, well, is she pregnant? And he's like, no, no, I don't think so. And he kind of starts to contemplate that, but then Eda's coming out, so he gets off the phone.
Right.
And then he's trying to like demand what kind of medicine she bought. Yes. Like all this stuff. And she's like, listen, control freak, like it's none of your business. Like, I'm fine. Let's go. And he's like, well, I love it because did you notice how he's like, well, there's a lot of things that nausea could be a symptom of, like Ebola.
Yes.
I was like, this man goes straight for like...
So dramatic.
Goes straight for Ebola virus. Not the flu, not food poisoning.
No.
Ebola.
It's gotta be something horribly terrible like Ebola.
Oh my gosh. And of course, he's trying to use this under the guise of like, well, if you're sick and we're working together, you could get me sick. So it is my business. And she's like, trust me, I'm the only one sick here. It's nothing like that. Get a move on.
Yeah. So they arrive at the house and there's already kind of some baby chaos and fighting with the couple. And we find out that they're going to throw a party for the company. At some point, all of the house stuff, they're all it's kind of just snippets as far as the actual work.
Right.
They both end up going in to change the baby because I guess Emre can't change the baby himself. And
oh my gosh, yeah.
And that leaves Serkan and Ada outside together. But this is where we find out about the mimosa plant because Ada sees it and she's like, oh my gosh, you have the mimosa plant. And she kind of explains the whole way that it works, how it's called a shy plant because, and I actually looked up a video of it and it's really cool what it does.
Like when you touch it?
Yeah. Yeah. Because it folds in on itself and kind of bends down like it's hiding.
Yeah. I read that somewhere too that it was called a touch me not. And I was like,
oh, how funny.
Oh my gosh. Like, if that's not Serkan.
Yeah. I was going to say that would be my plant name.
Right? A touch me not.
So Yeah, so he's like, oh, mimosa. And she's like, yes. She says that it's delicate and at the same time cowardly. Because this is after Asle goes back inside.
Oh, see, and mine said it's withdrawn.
Oh, interesting.
Instead of delicate, which I liked that interpretation.
Yeah.
But anyways, keep going.
And he says, what else? He says, what happens when you touch it? And this translation is not the greatest because it says dissolves needles. But basically it folds in on itself and folds down. And she says it loves loneliness. Mm-hmm. All her life she should be alone. Flower robot bolat.
I know, I love this. That's what its name should be.
Uh-huh. And he's like, oh, funny. And he's like, should we work a little bit? And she says, no.
I know. I love it. I read too that it also could mean the mimosa plant holds a meaning of secret love.
I read that too.
Which I was like, that's so perfect because he's having to secretly love her right now.
Yeah.
And
increased sensitivity as well. Mm-hmm. And mimosa flowers are often tied to themes of sense and good sensibility, which again, logic. How much is that, Serkan?
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I like too that one of the things I had pulled up about it was the thing about that. This is where I found out they're also called touch me nots, but the more aggressive you are with touching it, the even more so it closes up.
Oh, interesting.
And so I was like, okay, I like that painted picture too. Like, because the more she keeps trying to push at Serkan, the more he's just clamming up and, closing up about really everything that's actually going on. So yeah, of course, killing it with the flower meanings again and symbolism.
Yep. This website even said they can be used to show you wish to expand your life too, whether that's in terms of your career, your family, or travel. And how much did Eda expand his life during the time they were together?
That's so true. Dang.
Yeah. Yep. So good stuff.
Yes. So then they start arguing and then they decide to work, but then they kind of hear arguing happening inside the house. So they're like, okay, let's go say goodbye and we'll just come back later because
the nanny quits.
Yes. Yeah. Can you blame her?
No.
So they kind of are floating around outside the entrance of the house to not fully interrupt the argument that's happening right now. Because basically Asle is like, what is happening to us? Like, where's my loving husband? Like, we're struggling. Like, it's stress. This is stressful. And, the baby's crying, but sometimes babies just cry. There's nothing wrong with him. He's been changed. He's been fed. He's this, he's that. And Eda, Serkan can see she's about to walk in and intervene. And he's like, Eda, don't interfere. But she just walks in and she's like, you know what? Let me take the baby. Let me help. And she winds up calming him down.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh my gosh, he stopped crying. So we just kind of see that Eda is the little baby whisperer. And it's going to set up for the next part of the scene. But before that happens, we get a quick over to let's just talk about this so we can be done with it.
Yes.
So Celine and Ferit are apparently arguing custody over a dog none of us have ever met or has ever been mentioned. But
I guess it's been at the vet this whole entire time.
This poor sick dog. Dang. So
we don't even ever see it either.
No, we don't. So this poor dog, Celine finally gets a call that the dog is cured and she can come and pick the dog up.
Yeah.
Well, so she tells Ferit because she got the call when he was around. And Ferit's like, oh, great. I'll go pick her up right away.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, you're not. That's my dog now. And he's like, it was my idea to get a dog. What do you mean? No, I will take her. And she's like, I've spent more time with her. I'm the one that basically took her to get treated, blah, blah, blah. So they're arguing over a dog. And this happens a few different times throughout the episode. And at one point it happens when Jaren is there trying to talk business with them about contract stuff and
But Celine can't even talk business because she is so mad about the dog.
Mm-hmm.
And Jaren, good on her,
Yes.
points out the fact that clearly this is not even about a dog.
Mm-hmm.
So she's like, so I'm going to leave you guys alone so you can
Uh-huh.
take care of your crap. And then I'm going to go take care of my work that I've been trying to do in the first place.
Yep.
So they both kind of realize like, oh, this isn't really about a dog.
Right. Not before Celine like snaps at her though and makes a little snarky comment.
Oh yeah,
and
she's a jerk.
And Jaren's like, because she basically, Celine just blows up and is like, you know what? This is just all too much and I'm so sick and tired. Everywhere I turn, it's you or Edda or you with Edda and you're always here, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Like, okay, listen, they both work there and nothing is keeping you there, Celine. You can sell. Serkan would buy your shares from you in a heartbeat, which would then solve a few issues. He would be a higher shareholder than FA.
Yep.
And you could escape this horrible torture that you apparently are going through every day being there.
Right.
So got zero sympathy for you. And Jaren basically is like, look, I know you're hurt, but you don't get to talk to me like that.
Yep.
And Celine storms out and Jaren makes it clear to Federici, like, listen, I don't usually bite my tongue like that but we're at work. She's like, but if she starts pulling crap like this again, I'm not going to keep quiet, especially if she says something about Edda or me. Like, not cool.
Yeah.
And
then later on, she and Ferdy end up talking and she kind of encourages him, look, why don't I take you? I have an idea. Why don't I take you somewhere and maybe we can see if you can start looking at places other than Celine. And I thought it was funny because she says something to the effect of, I'm just tired of Princess Celine's antics and I can't handle them anymore, which I was like, oh, burn.
Well, even he kind of laughs at that comment when she says it too. And he's kind of like, you're right. Like, you're right, because it's not about the dog really. It's just about that she wants her way and I don't want to give her her way.
Yep.
And I can't really blame him. You know, I get it. So Jaren winds up taking him to a dog shelter. And, you know, is like, maybe you can give one of these dogs a home. Like, clearly the dog you guys are fighting over has a home either way. Like, and, you know, they're walking through and he kind of is being quiet and just taking it all in. So she sort of takes it as like, oh, shoot, was this a terrible idea to bring you here?
Right.
And I love it because he's like, no, is there a better place in the world? And I'm like, listen, a man who loves dogs.
Yep.
And so she's like, okay, good. Like, she's relieved, you know, and she's like, okay, then what is it? And he's like, nothing. And he's very pointedly looking at her. And he's like, I just think I'm learning to look in other directions other than Celine. And it's kind of a bit of a pointed moment. Like, is he talking about Jaren? You know?
Right.
And so, yeah, then they kind of play with dogs. And I assume he will be going home with one of them, but we don't actually see that.
Right. And then he ends up telling Celine, you can keep the dog.
Yes.
I found a new one.
Yeah. Well, and she's like, well, what convinced you? And he's like, nothing. Or like, what changed your mind? He's like, somebody just convinced me. Like, and just leaves it at that. So,
yep. So there's that storyline. So let's see. Aidan calls Edda because she's worried about her. And I thought that was pretty sweet because of how things left off the day before. And she was very obviously upset after overhearing what she and Serkan had talked about. And they call, but Serkan ends up answering because Edda has the baby.
Yeah, and she's like, well, you can hold the baby and I'll answer the phone. He's like, nope, I'll answer your phone.
Yeah. And I love that Aidan gives him as good as she gets, though, because he answers and he's like, Mom, why are you always video calling people all the time? And she's like, Serkan, because I can't leave the house. Yeah. She's basically like, you little dummy. What else am I going to do? I can't drive anywhere, so I'm going to video call people. So, and he says something like, didn't I tell you to stop calling her? And good for Edda, because she's like, if I didn't want her to call me, I would tell her that myself. Give me the phone.
Yes. Good on you, Edda. So, yeah. So, of course, then this sets off a whole thing because Aidan sees her holding the baby.
Yes.
And Edda calls it mini Serkan. And, you know, so basically it sends this whole frenzy of like, what the heck is going on? Like, you know, because she's confused because also she doesn't really get a chance to explain because Serkan's like, yeah, Mom, we're busy working, and just kind of like hangs up the phone on her.
Right.
So, of course, she like is freaking out. Safety's trying to calm her. I know this happens a couple scenes later, but Safety's trying to calm her, and he's like, well, it's it's not their baby, and she's like, no, duh, did you miss biology class? Of course it's not their baby. I know that. She's like, but like, what if they made up and then they hurried up and went out and like adopted a baby to name it Mini Serkan? Like, and Safety's like, oh, because that makes more sense than like an instant baby. Like, so then she's like, Ifair will know, so she calls Ifair. Not knowing that there's already these like weird pregnancy things going around in Ifair's head. So then when Idon calls her and is like, they have a baby, like what's going on? Ifair starts freaking out, and it's just everyone's freaking out.
Yeah, it's all snowballing at this point.
Yes. But back at the house, Emre and Asle finally come back out and are like, okay, he's, we can go in and should we go in and discuss the renovation plans? And Ed is like, yeah, he's asleep, so we can lay him down. So I like that she asks Serkan to bring her phone in her bag, and he like turns around to go get it off the table, and he looks at it and he's like, this isn't even a purse. Like,
he's just like grumbling.
Yep.
Oh man.
So yeah,
they decide that they're going to start renovations on the house right away. That way they can get things going, get it all done quickly.
Okay, time out though.
What?
Because Emre's like, or Asle, one of them's like, well, does that mean we should cancel our party tomorrow? And they're like, no, keep planning it. So you're telling me you're going to renovate the whole upper part of the house in a day? So are we using like 6-minute dryer logic here? Because
maybe.
Like, I was like, I'm sorry. Like, you're just now making the plans and you're still going to have a party tomorrow night because the renovations will be done? Because that's what spurs Edda to be like, because they're like, well, what are we going to do about the baby? We can't have him here when all these renovations are happening.
So they say that the renovations are going to be done?
Well, the way I took it was like, that's how I took it, was that they were going to be like done, because like otherwise, I mean, I guess they didn't have to be since the party was all downstairs and they were doing like the upstairs, but also with the way everything happens at the end of the episode, I sort of took it as like the plans were done. And
wow.
So
that's the fastest renovation in the history of the world.
That's what I'm saying. So
that's
I'm like,
crazy.
Okay, 6-minute dryer Dizi logic here, because you'd think they'd be like in the middle of tearing stuff down, where even if it is all upstairs, the house wouldn't really be in a position to like have a party.
There would be stuff everywhere.
Yeah. And the bathrooms are upstairs too, because every time they have to use the restroom, they have to walk upstairs.
Oh,
so like,
yeah,
you wouldn't really have a party if you don't have bathrooms that can be used. So I was very confused by this.
Right.
And also the rooms and stuff are all upstairs. So they wouldn't just be watching the baby for the afternoon to keep him out of the house. Like he wouldn't even have. So I was just like, are we supposed to be under the impression that like the whole thing was done? And also the fact that they were like, we want Serkan to do it himself, except then he spends the whole day watching the baby instead. Yeah, they're his plans, and I get that.
Right.
But he's not really overseeing it. Like, he makes the plans and then passes those plans on to the team that's there working. Which I guess maybe that's what an architect does, so maybe he doesn't really have to be there. But I just was a bit confused about all of this stuff. So I was like, okay, we don't have to cancel the party. And now all of a sudden, Edda's like, well, we'll take the baby for the day so you can get your things done, the prep for the party, and also just have a little breather because it seems like you need it.
Yeah.
Which, of course, then Serkan is like, what are you doing? And she's like, oh, this will be a great test for you. And God bless him. I loved this because he's like, no test necessary. I'm never having kids. And she's like, really? Like, but look how cute. And he's like, in my opinion, it's better to look from afar. And I'm like, I'm sorry. Like, it just made me laugh so hard because it was just like, yeah, I loved it. But basically, at this point, she's like, okay, weirdo. Well, she starts to get nauseous again. Yeah. And so she's like, hurry, take the baby. I need to use the restroom. And he's like, I can't take the baby. What are you talking about? And she's like, I don't feel good. Hurry up, and hands the baby off. And she rushes up to the restroom. And now, can I just say too, I get it. We're in COVID times. So clearly, it is never a real baby that they're holding this entire time, because anytime they're holding it, it's perfectly still. And if you notice, every single shot of the baby's face is always just these close-ups of a baby face. So it makes me think those shots were taken, in a different setting, for health concerns and all that. But either way, fake baby or not, I was like, Karem plus holding a baby, even awkwardly, equals heart eyes. But then the baby throws up.
Yep. He gets some spit up. And he is like, oh my gosh, do I feel something on my suit? And Emery's like, oh, sorry, I guess you overate a little bit. And so Serkan goes upstairs because he's like, oh my gosh, I hate this. This is disgusting. I can't stand this.
That made me laugh so hard as he's grumbling that up the stairs.
Oh my gosh. So he goes upstairs to head to the bathroom. And what do you know? Asle has just taken a pregnancy test and she is pregnant. And Eda comes upon her, sees this, congratulates her. But Serkan comes up right as Eda is saying, essentially, oh, it's going to be a girl. I can tell it's going to be a girl. And Asle is like, okay, how do you know this? And she's like, oh, I'm having a premonition and I've always wanted a girl. And so Serkan is overhearing this.
Oh my gosh.
The looks on his face are so priceless that I'm going to use them as reactions from now on to basically everything.
100%.
Because he's just like... He's just like, it can't be. How is this possible? Oh my gosh. What? A baby? Girl? He's just absolutely flipping out.
Oh my gosh. Have you seen that? I think someone posted it in the group, but it's gone around on Twitter too. Somebody made an edit where it's during his whole like he's not really saying anything. It's all his reactions and stuff, his facial expressions. And someone makes this whole thing about like, but I used protection. I used curtains, a lot of curtains, and it's like this whole thing about the protection that he used and the great curtains and all this stuff. And like, how could this have happened? Like, it's so funny. It is so funny.
Oh my gosh. I love to when she comes out of the bathroom and he's just staring at her and he's looking at her like he can see straight into her uterus.
Yes, I said laser beams right to her stomach.
Bro. You can't see in there. You're not going to be able to tell just by looking at her.
Like, listen, dude. And I laughed because when, of course, the fragments first came out for this, and we pretty much all of us knew it was fake, but like that she wasn't really pregnant.
Of course.
I was sitting here like, okay, Serkan, you're a very smart man. So although in Dizi land, who knows, pregnancy tests can be like dryers and apparently home renovations. Maybe you can pee on a stick, 2 days after having curtain night and know that you're pregnant, even though you haven't skipped a period yet or anything. But other than that, it's like, yeah, I'm sure your little Serkan swimmers are great and all, but even they, I don't think, would be able to like let you know that anything happened this soon. But yeah, yet, like you said, yeah, he's like staring laser beams at her stomach and she's like, what are you doing? Oh my goodness.
So they she ends up offering to babysit and Serkan is not thrilled, predictably.
Mm-hmm.
But it does like, look, you impressed a client, everything's going to be fine. And she's ignoring Ayfer's call because this is after the whole panicked call from Aydan. And she's like, well, it's because I'm with Serkan. What? Did I miss something?
Well, just after after they run each other on the stairs and he goes into the bathroom.
Oh, yeah.
It's
kind of just more of the same though.
Right. Like, yeah. But he actually sees the pregnancy test.
Right.
Which then is spurring more on to, this whole thing. And I totally gift that entire moment too, because I was like, okay, clearly he did not want to just say the word nay.
Yeah.
But it's Dizi, so because I was like, oh, this is correct. He wanted to just scream his favorite word.
Yes. And maybe there's some B-roll of him doing that somewhere out in the world.
Yes. But anyways, no, you're right. So they're at home now waiting for the baby to get there.
Yeah. So, Edda doesn't want to answer Ifer's call because she's with Serkan, and Ifer isn't going to be happy about that. And she is, a self-preserving kind of a person. So she doesn't answer her aunt. And she says something about, like, that's the war between the Yildiz and the Bulat. So that was funny. But this is the start of Serkan being concerned Serkan.
Yep.
And he is all paranoid. He wants her to sit down. He wants her to eat.
All this stuff. Oh my gosh. Asks if she's cold. Or my exact thing was like, are you freezing? And she's
That's what mine said.
She's like, no, I'm not freezing. And then his phone starts ringing. And I love this because Engin catches on fairly quickly that the quote crisis and the need that Serkan has for him to personally deliver these documents is because Serkan needs to talk to him. And I was like, he needs his bestie. We also see here that Erdem really is a terrible assistant because when Engin goes to get these papers, he's like, oh yeah, well I did print them, but then I tore them and then I didn't reprint them again. And Engin's like, what? Like, are you serious? So then, basically it's chaos. So then we're back at the Bulats and the baby's now been delivered because Serkan's carrying the car seat.
Yes.
And Edda's walking ahead of him and we finally see Sirius after a while. And so Edda's like, Sirius, did you miss me? I've missed you. How are you? Like, and she kind of runs over to him and plops down to chat with him. And Serkan's like, Edda, don't sit down so hard. And he's like, Sirius, knock that off. Like, don't.
like Sirius, don't encourage her. And she's just like, what's wrong with you? And she's like, Sirius, do you want to go on a long walk? Did you miss me? Should we go do this? And bark once for no and two for yes, and all this really cute stuff. Oh my
gosh. Well, I loved it. Yes. Oh my gosh.
And the whole time Serkan's like, be careful. Are you okay?
Well, and I love it too because she's clearly annoyed with him. And when she wants to go on the walk, he's like, well, maybe we can make that happen. And that's when she's like, do you want Serkan to come? Bark once for yes and twice for no. And so he barks twice. And again, Serkan.
I flipped it. I flipped that.
And I love it because Serkan's like, oh, comic. Like, oh, you're a comedian. Yeah, good job. But I thought it was quite hilarious. Because Sirius clearly missed his mom.
Well, and Serkan's like, yeah, this is hilarious. You're not especially when you're not the one with a baby in your arms. Like,
oh, please.
Like Serkan, he can barely hold that heavy baby.
Mm-hmm. We know what you're capable of, my man. You holding a car seat with a tiny baby in it is nothing.
So funny.
So then that's when I said Petty Parole has arrived because this is when one of the times when Engin comes out and he's like, Parole, I need to talk to you. Like, we need to talk about colors, this project, blah, blah, blah. And because the assistant had just been there and was going on and on about how much she loved the color blue on Engin.
Yeah.
And so Pearl's like, oh, Mavi, make everything Mavi. That's that's everybody's favorite color. We're just going to paint everything blue. And it's just, it was funny, but also like, yeah.
Yeah. And then this is kind of where we start a bit of the power struggle with Efe because Serkan did all the blueprints himself and he didn't check with anybody else. He was like, they're working with me. This is my project. So why would I have to run these by anybody, including Efe?
Well, and Efe's a landscape architect, is he not?
Right.
Like, that's different than an architect. So why would he run blueprints past you? Like,
right. Yep. So, but Efe is kind of insistent on seeing these blueprints. And he ends up also asking Celine to sit down for coffee.
Yeah, I have some thoughts about that when we get there too.
Yeah. So Engin comes down to the farm and they have their little discussion. And Serkan is like telling him, you can't tell anybody. This is very serious. I don't even know if this is true, but maybe Ada is pregnant. And of course, Aggi's like, oh, I'm going to be an uncle.
He's like, I want to know how many takes it took when he grabs Serkan's cheeks, because Serkan is just standing there like enduring it. And I'm like, how did Kerem just not burst out laughing?
I don't know.
So I want to,
it was amazing.
I want to see the bloopers for this episode, because they had to have been so good.
Yes.
Especially during the freak out scene. Like, oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah.
I need the bloopers. So
yeah.
MF Yapım admin, whose name I just learned and already forgot. The social media manager, can you please help us out? Yeah.
So go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I love that this, even though this was meant to be something goofy and funny, like, it's a really big deal that Serkan like called him and wanted to talk to him about this. Like, I love that we see that growth from episode 1 Serkan, or even 5 episodes ago Serkan. Like, you know, he didn't even tell Engin about the whole fake engagement thing, and that's his best friend. You know, he didn't tell him about that until he had to. This, though, the fact that it was like he was going to burst, he just needs to talk to somebody about it, and like then he did. Like, he actually did, instead of keeping it inside. Like, I just loved that showed growth on his part, too. So,
yeah.
Basically, Engin, what it boils down to is he's like, doesn't really matter if you and Eda are on the outs or not talking much. This is a big deal. You're going to have to talk to her and, like, find out about this.
Exactly.
Which, good on Engin. That is correct.
Yes, definitely. So Ayfer is still panicking. That's kind of a quick thing. And then we get a quick scene of Serkan telling Seyfi that he's found a place to live. And Seyfi needs to start packing up his stuff and getting everything together. And Seyfi kind of warns him. He says, okay, but if your mom doesn't know, you'd better be the one to tell her. Because if I tell her, if she finds out from me, things aren't going to be good. So that's that. And... yes. So now we can get to the weird coffee session.
This was so, okay, because I'm sitting here like, okay, Celine, the only reason supposedly that you're still around is because Serkan asked you to stay because your 5% gives you two the edge over FA as far as percentages wise with the shares. So my thing is like, I don't like this already. The fact that she even agreed to sit down and have coffee with him. And she's like, oh, this is such a nice break. It's so stressful here, blah, blah, blah. The last time I had fun was when we went off-roading, the thing that you organized. And then my thing too right here is like, FA starts talking about like, yeah, he doesn't see me as an equal. He's kind of venting about that. But what he very clearly says, like, I need to show him that we are equals. And she's like, well, what do you mean by that?
Yeah.
And he basically says like, oh, you know, these are just well-known methods, like things that we do in business, blah, blah, blah. Okay, either way, he's making it clear. In my thing, it said he talked about the, quote, dark ways of business.
That's what mine said too.
Okay, so how was that not immediately a red flag? Like, the second this coffee date meeting thing was over, she should have been calling Serkan and saying, listen, I don't know what he's up to, but he does have a plan to, quote, show you that you two are equals. Like,
yeah, so, and right after he says that, Celine says, should I be worried? So she's not stupid.
She's not. But the fact that, but she already knows Serkan doesn't trust him. So just because he says, no, you don't need to be worried, she's like, oh, okay.
Well, and it's this weird thing with FA because he's getting offended by Serkan and he's really mad that he doesn't trust him and he wants to be considered an equal partner. But the fact of the matter is, Serkan is not the one who signed off on him coming into the company in the first place.
Right.
The only reason he's in the company is because Celine sold him her shares.
Yep.
He wasn't invited. He wasn't offered this position. Serkan didn't go, hey, buddy, why don't you come be my partner? It was totally on the decision of Celine. So I don't understand why FA is so adamant about being trustworthy and all, like having this relationship with Serkan and being equal and all this stuff, because like he's himself admits, I put money into this and now I'm a partner. It's like, yeah, that's the only way that you quote earned your way into this company was by having money.
Yeah, you elbowed your way in. He was clearly already, maybe we won't say harassing, but he's clearly the one who approached Celine about wanting to buy her shares, and she was like, no, not interested, and then called him back, with the whole wedding thing and was like, okay, I am
Right.
interested. So yeah, you're totally right. Like, you don't really have a leg to stand on here, dude. Like, you forced
Nobody owes you anything.
No, you forced your way in here.
Yeah.
And you know that. Like,
Mhm.
and yeah, so just either way, whether it's going to be by, quote, well-known methods that people just do in business or not, as someone who's there to support Sarah Khan, he deserved a heads up about this. So my thing is like, okay, if Celine doesn't put 2 and 2 together next episode, like, and go, or she should have put it together even by the end of this episode. If she doesn't put it together like, oh, that's weird. He said he was going to teach him a lesson. And then magically something that's never, ever, ever happened before.
Yeah.
Until FA got here.
And who would, quote, know Serkan better than anybody but Celine.
So it's like, if you don't put this together, you're useless. Like, you're just a useless character at this point. Like,
yeah. I'm really hoping they don't do a turn where she turns into a bad guy with FA, because we know FA is a bad guy. Yeah. But I'm hoping it's not like, oh, Celine joins Team FA and now they're working together. Because that worried me a little bit about this whole scene.
Well, and it's a real possibility, because if she does, then her tiny little 5%.
Yep.
Well, you know what would be interesting if that did happen is if then like Farid and Serkan kind of came to it'd be very interesting to see the two of them team up.
Yeah.
Like, and actually get along and come to an understanding. Like, because it seems like Farid is not headed towards villain bad guy. Like,
no.
So it would be kind of cool if, to see, like, maybe for Serkan to see, like, okay, he's not really as bad as I thought. Like, he doesn't have these nefarious intentions. Like, yeah, he has a lot to learn. And, because he, the hotel business is not the same as the holding and architecture, but like, it'd be kind of cool to see the two of them come to, I don't want to say like be friends, but like just be colleagues who get along.
Yeah.
And that'd be kind of cool to see if we kind of wind up seeing Celine fall for FA's stupid charms, like, and kind of wind up, quote, siding with him. But yeah, I mean, I hope, I'm with you though. I hope not, because it's like, I feel like you'd have to be really stupid, like Celine, for how long you've known Serkan and how well you supposedly know him, like, to just fall for whatever FA's trying to sell you. Yeah.
Yeah. So we get baby time, and Serkan is napping, and big Serkan doesn't understand the imposition, and they have this. This was such a Freudian slip that I was living for. Oh my gosh.
Too.
I was like, this is so beautiful, because he says, what is this logic? Someone else's child in my home? I was like, yep, you totally think of it as both of your homes.
I know.
Because you love her.
Well, and I love that they just glossed over it. Like, they didn't have Ed to go, our home. What are you talking about? It just was a legit Freudian slip that he quickly corrected. It was just there for us to catch. Like, it wasn't a huge deal, but it is. Like,
yep. So then she's like, okay, well, the baby wakes up after like 3 minutes of napping, and then he needs to eat. So she essentially shoves the baby at Serkan. And this might have been my favorite scene.
Okay, before you get to that, because before she shoves the baby at him, and they're kind of arguing, because she's like, you'll need to feed him, and he's like, I'll need to feed him, like, and he's like, what are you talking, like, he's just wigging out, and he's doing a good job at it, like, he's flustered and is like, no, I don't know, and he's like, Edda, he's a teeny tiny living thing, like, I don't know.
Is this when he talks about how he has a little mouth and he doesn't know what he would eat?
It's like, he's a tiny, teeny living thing with a little mouth and a little throat. Okay, when he said he's a tiny living thing rather than just like he's a baby, it immediately made me think of Christmas when I was a kid, when my brother got a Toy Story watch for Christmas. He was little. And oh my gosh, because my brother opens it and it was Buzz Lightyear themed. And he was so excited, and he's like, oh my gosh, mind you guys, he was like 5, maybe 6. Okay. And he says, it's a Buzz Lightyear digital timepiece. Like, he was not a Toy Story watch, not a Buzz Lightyear watch, a Buzz Lightyear digital timepiece. And I don't know why, but Serkan being like, he's a teeny tiny living thing, immediately made me think of my brother doing that. And it cracked me up because I was just like, you're being so like, I don't even know not proper, but like.
Right.
Like, you just made this way more specific and complicated than it needs to be. Yeah, clearly he's a teeny tiny living thing. Like, you couldn't just say he's a baby. I don't know how to take care of babies.
Oh my gosh. So funny.
And yeah, so then Ada basically is like, get over it. I need to go heat up his food, and like thrusts the baby at him.
Yeah. So he's holding the baby so awkwardly.
He's having
he looks like he's. Go ahead.
He's having a mini meltdown.
Yeah. He looks like he's just panicking. He looks like a robot trying to hold a baby.
He really does.
So he immediately puts the baby back into the crib because he can't handle just holding him, and he's like.
But don't you love what he says when he's holding him? Even though he says it out of jealousy, it's because he's saying it like,
oh yes,
he's saying it very frustratingly as he's bouncing the baby. But he's like, "What a lucky little Serkan you are!" He's like, "You're more fortunate
you're the luckiest Serkan out there because you get to spend the whole day with Ada."
Like when Miriam, when she was live tweeting, she translated it as, "You get to spend the whole day in Eda's arms."
Oh,
and I was like, oh my gosh. Like, I mean, he says it angrily because he's just like panicking. But I was like, oh, Serkan. Yeah. Like, oh my gosh. So I was like, cute. I love that you're jealous of an infant. Like,
he's totally jealous of a baby.
But then you're right. He like is like, okay, let's put you back in your crib. But you're right. This is like the best scene comes up.
Because he's like, okay, let's talk about architecture.
Let's start way with the beginning with the Roman Empire. Like
he's like, this is the best. Now let me explain to you. And oh my gosh, I was dying. I was like, if this is not Serkan to a T, where he's just being so straightforward, and he's like, little baby, let's talk about architecture.
Oh my gosh.
Let me lay down some lessons for you as you're in your crib.
It's so funny. Well, and then, so as he starts doing that, we pan out and we just get the idea that he's teaching him all the stuff. We get a bit of a Jaren and Ayşe freak out. And that's really all it is. Well, then we go back to them, and Eda's walking back in the room, and she's got
Seyfi and Aydan spied a little bit before this.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, but it's just a little quick moment because they see the baby, and they see Serkan leaning over the crib just talking to the baby.
Oh, that's right. And Seyfi's like, he's probably telling him about his grandmother.
Yeah.
That's right.
So yes, then Ada comes in.
And she's got the bottle, and then she's got a bowl of chips, and she's like, what are you doing? And he's like, we're talking. He's like, I'm informing him of things. She's like, yeah, I think baby Serkan's already studied Roman architecture. And he's like, listen, in my opinion, the little Serkan is a lot like big Serkan. And she looks at him like, are you serious? He's like, yeah, he's a businessman. And she's like, that. I'm sorry, what? And she's like, how did you come to that? And he's like, look, firstly, he doesn't cry. Secondly, he's looking right at me. He's making eye contact. And thirdly, he listens very attentively. And she's like, okay, come on, it's time to eat. And he like whispers, and he's like, listen, the next topic is the architect Sinan. He's one of the best. Now, I looked him up. He's built a lot, like the Hagia Sophia. Like,
okay,
he's a very well-known, like, he's one of Turkey's, like, first, I think, known architects. Like,
okay.
And he's responsible for a lot of big projects like that, mosques and things like that.
Okay.
So it was funny because, you know, he's like, yeah, then we're going to talk about Sinan.
Yeah, like, just you wait, little buddy.
Yes. So, then it's time to eat, and he's like looking at Eda, and he's like, what are those for? And she's like, a snack for me to eat. And he's like, you can't have chips. And she's like, what are you talking about? Yes, I can. And he's like, no, you need to have something that's better for your, well, it's like, I can't pronounce it, but basically things that are better for the for your blood, like your blood sugar, like
okay.
a good for your like fruit that's on the glycemic index kind of a thing.
Okay.
And stuff. And she's like, okay, then I want watermelon. And he kind of laughs and he's like, of course you do. And I was like, okay, I'm not sure what the joke was supposed to be there, except for the only thing I could think of is this scene from Einon. Or that's what it's called, right? His Blue TV show.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know what the context is because I haven't seen this episode yet, but I've seen the clip. And he's like holding a whole watermelon and he's like hopping and frolicking around these fields and fake makes out with it and all this stuff. Like, it's super funny. And I was like, okay, was that like supposed to be a funny reference to that? Like, or
oh, maybe
because
or maybe because watermelon is like the least healthy fruit you could possibly eat
because
it's all water and sugar.
Yeah. So he's like, as he's watching her with the baby and stuff, he's like, of course, look at you. You just love children and all living things. She's like, yeah. And he's like, so what about like your own children? And she basically shuts him down and is like, we're not talking about personal topics. It's none of your business. It doesn't concern you.
Yeah.
Then Ifair shows up. We kind of have a collective freak out between her and Idon, wigging out over the fact that there's a baby there.
Right.
Is Edda pregnant? Yada, yada, yada.
Yeah. Safie runs away panicking because they're just not understanding each other.
And they're like screeching like banshees. I don't blame them.
Yeah. So Edda wants Serkan to release gas.
Mine says she wants him to burp the baby, guys. But mine says, can you blow your baby gas? I was like, what? Oh my gosh, what in the world?
Well, and as she starts explaining, I was like, oh, she wants him to burp the baby. Like, she's like, you just hold him and pat his back and that will release the gas. And I was like, yeah, it'll burp him. Like,
And Serkan, of course, is like, listen, I wanted nothing to do with this. I can't handle it. Like, I can't hold him. He's tiny. He's just like, I can't do this. Mm-hmm. And of course.
And in walks Efe.
Blah. Who has plenty of nephews in Martin.
Yes, but this
I made a gif of this.
This sparks another I also have a dog moment. Because his attitude changes so fast. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I totally could have done that. I totally could have done that myself. And Edda's like, you didn't want to have anything to do with this. You told me that this was all my idea and you didn't want to touch the baby and all this stuff. But now that Efe's there, of course.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And so sorry, I'm looking at my screenshots.
That's okay.
But Efe is just kind of like, well, can I help? Mm-hmm. You know, you guys have a lot of work to do. I can stay and help if you want to. And Serkan's like, no. He's like, well, if you want, I can help. And Serkan's like, believe me, no, we really don't need your help. It's like, oh, okay. And then Efe gets a burp out of baby Serkan, and Edda's like, oh, he burped, how cute. And Efe's like, oh yeah, that was so cute. And he kind of laughs. And Serkan, with the fakest smile on his face, he's like, oh my gosh, cute.
He's like, oh yeah, ne güzel. And then earlier when Efe actually takes the baby, Edda's like, oh my gosh, thank you, you're awesome. And Serkan's all, oh yeah, chocked, you're awesome. Like, he just like makes this little, I made a gif out of it because he's totally mocking Edda, like saying you're awesome. And it's the perfect, I'll use that gif all the time. Like, it's
so funny.
It's so funny. That cute one too. I think I made a gif out of it when he's like, oh yeah, he's all
cute. How cute.
I love Serkan. Oh my gosh. It's so good. So Efe is kind of off to the side working because apparently he did stick around, but the moms walk in.
Yes.
And start freaking out, looking at the baby. And then they wind up talking to Edser separately. Like, Ifair's like, I need to talk to you. And Idon's like, I need to talk to you.
Yeah.
Basically, they both ask if Edda could be pregnant, and Edda is adamantly like, no, I'm not pregnant. Sarah Khan tells Idon, well, maybe, I don't know yet. And she's like, well, when are you going to know? And he's like, when I ask her. So it's kind of left up in the air whether she is or not. With Sarah Khan and Idon, Ifair and Edda have cleared it up that she is definitely not pregnant. Both moms are basically like, I can't wait for that day to come, but with someone else. Like,
yeah.
And they're like, okay, this conversation's over. Bye. Like, time for you to go.
Yes.
And then we get the awkward waving through the window as Fa and the moms are leaving. Like,
yeah, and like, it's interesting though because they're looking at them all
hard eyes,
yeah. And
well, even like, says
weren't they going to kill each other 2 days ago? And Idon says, oh, but they fit together.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. And Ifair agrees with her. And then they kind of wake up and realize, oh, wait a second. I mean, no, they don't really fit together.
Yes.
It's impossible that they're together. Yes, I think so too. God forbid. God forbid.
I know.
And that's kind of it. So
yes.
It was just interesting. Maybe that was also kind of a Freudian slip on their part of that they do look good together, that they do fit well together, and kind of that confirmation, even from the mom. So that was kind of nice. But it wasn't them still being like,
totally,
oh yeah, no, they should never talk to each other again and they shouldn't be together. They both were kind of unknowingly admitting, oh yeah, they look really nice together.
I do want to rewind really quickly because I caught this yesterday when I was watching. And I was like, oh, because like we had all these hints of what Fa was up to. The first, him being so insistent on seeing these blueprints.
Right.
The second was when he's burping the baby. And he says to Sarah Khan, like, because he's like, Emery called me and says you guys already got started on the renovations. And Sarah Khan tells him, yeah, he said it was urgent and I got the plans going and got it started myself. And Fa says to him, oh, impressive that you managed to concentrate on your work with all this going on.
Oh.
So he was planting a seed right there. Like, oh, look at all these distractions around you, but look at how you managed to still do this.
Wow.
And so when we get
That's a good catch.
When we get to this point later, I'm like, oh, he was already planting that like seed of doubt of like, you couldn't really fully concentrate because you're taking care of a baby. You're not even working at work. You're working at home.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, he's planting like all this stuff. I didn't catch that until yesterday, but I was like, oh, he said that was very purposely said, like in that scene. So anyways.
Dang. No, that's a really good catch.
So we already talked about the dinner scene with Ingen and Pearl. So now it's that evening. We fast forwarded. It's evening time.
Yes.
And
they're going over some work because she made some sketches for the garden. And so they're kind of talking about that.
Yeah.
This is such a good scene.
It is. I love the Sarah Khan just talking like an adult to baby Sarah Khan scene. That's like adorable. This though, this was such a charged scene.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Because, they're working on the whole why am I
well, they're talking about the plans.
Yes. Okay. Sorry.
She's got the garden plans, and
yes,
he's kind of
still trying to get her to eat, asking if she's comfortable.
Yes, exactly.
All this stuff, and he's like staring at her. And then when she's like, "I made these garden plans," I totally lost my place in my notes. I was like, "Did I like not write anything about this scene? That's weird." And he's like, when did you have time to do this? And she's like, when I was playing with the baby, like, I was sketching. And so he is looking at it and he's like, can I have the pencil? And he like, the way he grabs it from her hands, there's all this hand contact with them. And she pulls her hand away almost like it's a little burned. Like she pulls it away pretty quickly. And he makes a few adjustments and he's like watching her this whole time and makes some suggestions. And they're sitting very closely. And he makes a suggestion about adding more flowers because he knows not only does she love them, but Emery and Osley clearly do, so that they're the kind of people who would appreciate, very specifically placed floral arrangements in their garden.
Right.
And you know, there's these tiny little like sparks kind of going between them, but they're like kind of subdued. Like they're not these crazy sparks. It's like these, I don't know how to describe them, but there's like just, there's something passing between them.
Right.
And they kind of start talking about, you know, architect chit chat. He's talking about, you know, what he wants to do with the roof in the attic. And then they kind of get jolted a little bit because she thinks she hears mini Serkan. Yeah. And she's like, sorry, I thought I heard him. And he's like, no, it's just the birds outside. He means like the birds on the roof, but the translation's like, oh, it's just the seagulls upstairs. Like, but I'm pretty sure he meant it's the birds outside.
Yeah.
So it kind of changes a little bit, gives a chance for change in conversation. And he says to her, can I ask you something? And she just kind of nods very, very slightly. And he says, why are you helping a couple that you don't know at all? And she says, he says, because after all, it's a child. I don't really understand because it's a huge responsibility. And she says, I know you don't understand. She says, and he's like, that's not what I'm saying, Ada. I do understand you. She's like, but we've already talked about this. You told me that this sort of behavior infuriates you. And he's like, no, you don't seem to understand what I'm getting at right now. And she's like, no, I do. This is me, Serkan. This is how I am. This is me. And he just kind of looks at her and she's like, why'd you stop talking? And she's like, come on, say something smart. Make me shut up like you did then. Like basically say something shocking that will make me close my mouth. And he's like, maybe I want to be silent. Maybe I want you to talk. And she's like, you want me to talk? What should I talk to you about? He says, is there something you want to tell me? He's clearly trying to get her to say that she might be pregnant or is pregnant.
Right.
But she's obviously that's not where her mind is at all.
Right.
And she's like, there's so much I want to tell you.
Yeah.
She's like, it will take forever to do that, but I don't have that kind of time. And he says, well, okay, is there maybe one thing you want to tell me? And she says, no, Serkan. And he says, no. And she says, no. And he's looking at her and she's like, listen, I came to you as I was. And the way you are, just as you are. I loved you for who you are. I gave you my heart, but you, and he says, I never wanted to hurt you.
Oh, see, mine said I never wanted to change you.
Oh, well, that actually makes more sense considering what they're talking about.
Right.
And so he says, she says, listen, you told me not to interfere, like with the whole baby thing and all that and helping with that. And she says, but in my opinion, it's you who needs to not interfere. So leave me alone. And then
their look between the two of them, the way he's staring at her.
I know.
Oh my gosh.
It's so, his eyes are so expressive. Like, he looks so, what's even the word? Like, not even hurt, but just like
to me, he has a longing in his eyes.
Yes.
Like he is looking at her and his eyes are saying everything that he cannot say for himself. And his eyes are revealing everything that he has almost accidentally revealed this whole time.
I know.
Being jealous of a baby, saying it's their house together, our house, not just his house. All of these little things that are the truth, desperately trying to scratch themselves out of him, but he isn't letting them.
Yeah. Yep.
And of course, they're interrupted because Emre and Asle come in. They're like, oh, Eda, thank you guys so much for watching the baby. We got a few hours to ourselves. She also explains, oh, and I told him about the baby. And so Eda's like, congratulations. And slowly, very slowly, you see the
dawning
dawn on Serkan. And he's like, oh, so you're
Wait,
not, and so, but you're, and he's like, oh, and he starts laughing, and
And he's like, Emre Bey, congratulations. Like, and then he's like, wait, another baby where? And she's like, in my stomach. And he's like, oh, in there. And he's like, Edda, are you okay then? You're okay then. Okay. Yeah. Like it. And you can see Edda knows exactly what he's thinking now. She's figuring out all this stuff. And she's like, knock it off. Like, there are people right here. And he's like, so you're not. And then they even kind of figure out what he was figuring out because they're like, oh, did you two make up? Like, is everything good?
Yeah, they're like, oh, are you together?
And Edda's like, no, we are not. He's not even my boss. He's nothing to me. We're nobody to each other. Like all this stuff. They basically are like, oh, okay. They confirm the plans for the party tomorrow that they'll both be there. They leave with the baby. And Edda is like, what is wrong with you? This explains everything. Why you were being so attentive and why you were so concerned about what I was eating and if I was comfortable and if I was hot or cold. Like, I should have known. What in the world? Like,
yeah, she's like, you were only interested in me all day because you thought I was pregnant. And he's like, well, you were sick. And she's like, I was just sick. You could have asked. He's like, I tried to ask you.
And he's like, listen, there could still be a mini bola in your stomach. And she's like,
my gosh.
No, there is not. And he's like, well, we don't know. And she's like, yes, we do. And she's like, I can't even believe this is what you were thinking. She's like, you're not even remotely ready to be a dad. You don't even touch babies. You wouldn't even touch this baby. And he's like, yes, I did. I walked around with mini Serkan vomit all over my jacket. And she's like, yeah, but you ran to the bathroom the second it happened to clean it up. Like, and he's like,
and yet it was on me. I'll tell you.
And then he's like, also, Minik Serkan is going to be a very successful architect thanks to me, even better than Erdem. And I don't know why he had to throw that in there. Because I'm like,
I think he means like as a baby, he'll be a better architect than Erdem.
Then even Erdem could be as an adult. Okay.
Yeah.
And she's like,
like, you wouldn't even touch him. He's like, I totally touched him.
So fixated on that. And then she's like, that's it. I'm leaving. And she like storms out and he's like, Edda. But she's like, no, I'm out of here. Like, I can't even believe this. But not before, as she's leaving, she runs into Idon and is like,
right,
I'll be back for you tomorrow. She's like, think about one of the things you've missed the most about not being able to leave the house, and the rest is a surprise.
Yes.
And Idon's like shocked. Like, I can't even believe you don't have to do this after everything. She's like, I know I don't, but I want to. And Yıldız is keep our promises.
Yeah.
So Idon's actually really excited because she didn't think Edda was going to help her anymore. And so she leaves. Then Serkan is inside working and he calls Layla and he's like, listen, I just emailed the plans over to you. I need you to print them and then have the physical copies brought to the team that's working at Emre and Aslı's villa so that they can like follow these plans. So put a pin in that because I have thoughts about that when everything happens at the end too.
So the girls come to Edda and they're all kind of talking after their long day. They're talking about moving and going places, and Fifi talks about moving somewhere, kind of escaping. She says that Japan has always interested her. Jaren is missing her days when she was dreaming of being a shoe designer. Yeah. Because that hasn't been brought up in a while. She's been very focused on her lawyer work.
Yes, I was wondering if that was just going to be like, oh, not a thing anymore. So I'm glad that got brought back up. Yeah.
And Jaren's kind of like, okay, look, I have to admit something. I'm so tired of Celine. I don't like this girl. She gets on my last nerve. And she's kind of just venting to her friends. And then she even is like, do you know what she said to Serkan the day before? Was it the day before or the day of?
I think it was the day before her wedding.
Yeah. And essentially it's the whole, you'll always be the most important person to me. That whole spiel that she gave to Serkan, that he'll always be important. And this gives Edda a little flashback to the moment when she was checking on Celine and she saw all the cut up pictures, and the only ones that weren't sliced up were the ones of Serkan.
Yep.
So that's an interesting little foreshadowing considering the fragment next week.
Although I'm convinced that's just a total fake out, but we'll talk theories with that too.
So now we have a little Edser out in the garden. They're both looking at the stars. And then Serkan picks up his book again.
Yes, he does.
And this is the same book that he was reading last time. Although he seems to read like a paragraph and then puts it down. So I don't think he'll ever finish this book.
It's a short book. He can finish it. But did you get screenshots of this?
I did. So let me find.
And it's Madonna in a fur coat, you guys, if you don't know by now. That's the title of the book, and it is available if you want to buy it for yourselves.
So he says, if by chance I hadn't met you, again in the same way, but knowing nothing, I would continue to live. You taught me that there is another life in the world, and also the fact that I have a soul. If you hadn't completed it, it's not your fault. I think essentially, if you didn't complete my life, if you didn't complete my soul, it's not your fault.
Yeah. So, and this is the first time that because when he was reading excerpts before, we couldn't see the page number. But this one, the page number is very poignantly showed. So, of course, I was like, okay, let's look that up since it seemed to work out so well for us when we did that with the whole little Prince page number thing. And I really like this because I feel like it ties into the whole meaning of like the black roses and stuff you talked about last week. And so this one says, the page was number 159, and it says angel number 159 can be interpreted as a bringer of happy endings and new beginnings. When you see this favorable angel number, it's a sign that one phase in your life is coming to an end and another is about to begin. And it says it's a number that often is associated with pursuing its own goals by itself. And at times it will follow a new interest, sometimes seemingly on a whim. While it can accomplish very much alone and find satisfaction in following new interests and goals, its real happiness will lie within the family.
Wow.
Yep. So I like that because I'm like, okay, again, with the whole like sections of a life coming to an end, I have a feeling with the way this episode ends, like something could be, I feel like the portion of his life that could be coming to an end is his position in the holding, or just the holding in and of itself, like maybe the holding, or even his stance in art life, like so I'll go more into that when we talk about the final scene. But I was just like, wow, like the whole, like, it doesn't necessarily say like it's a bad thing that a certain portion of your life is coming to an end and a new thing is starting. Just like with the whole black rose, like, yeah, you could see it as a bad thing, but it could also just mean, hey, this portion is coming to an end and a new thing is starting. So I just thought that was very, very interesting.
Yeah.
And thank you to the people who reached out to me to make sure that I had noticed that the page number was visible. To be like, did you catch this? I'm sure you did, but just in case. So yeah. So after this whole thing, after he reads his 3 sentences and then can't handle anymore and puts the book down, we have breakfast with Ayşe the next morning. And basically the whole point of this is Fifi shows up with this secret gift for Eda that Eda requested. Like, did you get it for me? And basically explains like it's for Aydan. She's helping her. And Ayşe is kind of like, okay, I see you're still spending time over there. Like, and she's hesitant, but so she's like, well, I'm going to go with you, because basically Eda's like, I'm an adult, right? And I can choose to spend time with who I want when I want.
Right.
But Ayşe's like, well, I'm going to go with you then. I think Ayşe's just, cautious about how much time she spends over there and getting sucked into, because she's been hurt by them so much.
Yeah.
So, so basically that's what it is. Aydan also is trying to figure out what the surprise is,
and when she'll come.
Yeah.
She's like been dressed early. She's all ready, and she's like freaking out about when she's going to actually get there. So,
yeah.
So we get over to Art Life, and Erdem is bugging Layla while she's trying to get the stuff printed off and sent. And she's like, look, in case you haven't noticed, I'm trying to work and do the job that you were supposed to do, but you're just talking. So can you leave me alone?
Yep.
So as she's desperately trying to get this all ready, Efe is being a creep and is watching this whole situation. Well, when the two of them go upstairs, he heads on over to the computer and starts clicking away and messing with stuff.
Yep.
So do you think that this is where he does his sabotage, or do you think he did it earlier? Because
I think it's here.
okay.
I personally think it's here, and then that way when I assume when Layla actually goes to like get the printing of this, it's going to have the new altered.
That's what I thought. I thought that was the implication.
Yeah.
Because she's going upstairs to the printer, right?
That's what I assumed.
Pick it all up from the printer. Okay. So, yeah. So he does
messes with something. We don't know exactly what, but
yeah.
So yeah, he's crossed officially into villain territory as far as I'm concerned. No matter what his intentions were, big or small. Because when it all eventually blows up in his face, he's like, oh, I didn't mean it to be that big, but oh well, it was, and you're a terrible human being. So Edda and Ayfer arrive at the Bolat property, and Seifi winds up taking Ayfer through a tour of the grounds so that Edda and Aydan can do their thing. Yeah. And basically what Edda is doing is she's taking Aydan on a virtual tour of London. She brought, what are those things called?
The virtual reality glasses.
Thank you. And I love this because Aydan totally lights up. She gets very excited. Like, even as they're like, they've got the glasses on and she's all excited, pointing out all these things that she misses and loves about London.
Yeah.
And it's such a slip because, she's not doing it to hurt Edda or anything.
Yeah.
But she's like, oh my gosh, because Edda basically is like, well, I wouldn't know. I've never actually been to London. And she's like, oh my gosh, there are so many places I know Serkan would love to show you there. And that puts the immediate brakes on.
Yeah, she whips off her glasses and she's like, Aydan Hana, I don't want to hear a word about your son. Thank you very much. And then they kind of move on from there. Yes. It's just a little quick moment, but it's like Edda just needed to remind her, hey, remember, I don't want to talk about your son. I don't want to hear about your son.
Right.
This is you and me. We're doing our thing, and we're going to leave Serkan Bey out of it.
Yes. So then they go back to their little London tour, and it's really sweet. And at one point, Aydan does reach over and grab her hand, and basically it's just like, in 20 years, like, this is the best thing someone's ever done for me. So, like, she has been stuck at home seemingly since basically maybe the oldest son died. So maybe there was something there like you had predicted way back, like that triggered in her anxiety, maybe anxiety that already existed, but is just taking a new form and not being able to leave the safety and comfort of her home.
Yeah.
So it's been I didn't realize it had I know you had predicted and said that before, but I guess I just didn't really think about how long it had been, not just like the last few years, but like the last 20 years that she's been at home like this. So
it's a long time. So Serkan gets a call from Efe, and Efe is kind of just encouraging him that if they want the sports complex job, because apparently this is the biggest job opportunity that Emre and Aslı can offer in working with them, that they're going to have to go to the party and they're going to have to schmooze them and convince them. And Efe wants to have a meeting where they're kind of planning their strategy and all this kind of stuff. But Serkan is just like, it's not necessarily I'll talk to him and I'll get the job.
Yep.
So that's that.
And basically hangs up the phone.
Yeah.
So then we get a quick thing with Ife.
There you go. Ife,
I guess. Yeah, that works. Safe air, Ife. Basically, he's like, he can see that she's an expert with garden stuff. And he's like, I want you here the next time the gardener's here. And she's like, oh, I don't like to step on somebody else, like another gardener's toes. Like, he's like, no. He's like, but I think your input's important. You clearly have knowledge. And he's like, plus, next time Edda comes to help Miss Aydan, like, you have an excuse to be here. Like, so he's looking out for her too, knowing she's there to look out for her niece.
Yeah.
So then we already talked about the whole Jer Fair thing. So Serkan stumbles upon Edda and Aydan, and Edda's like, we're in a play right now. Hush. Like,
they both shush him.
And it's funny because he basically is mumbling about all the crazy people in his life. Like, you guys have lost your minds. And I'm like, you hush. She's helping your mother, you turd. Like, you just let her be. But he's like, I deal with crazies at work. Then I come home and I'm dealing with them here. Like, basically, there's nobody normal in my life.
Yep.
And then we switched back over to Art Life, and Efe had a meeting anyway.
Yeah. So he is explaining about their competition for this big project. It's another con. Great.
Yes. People just heard the name Khan in the live watch and were like, what the heck are we like bringing him back into play? But the last name's very different. It's a very different Khan.
So I guess he's a second generation architect from a very famous, his dad was very famous. He also knows Emre from school, from college. So they're really close friends. So it's pretty hard, pretty stiff competition to be up against. But Serkan comes and he sees that they had a meeting without him. And not only did they have a meeting without him, they had a meeting in his office. How dare they? So he comes and it's all very tense because he's there right at the end of the meeting and Fa kind of just dismisses the meeting. He's like, okay, well, we're done. So...
Oh my gosh.
But Serkan just tells him, he's flexing his power again. And he says, if you're going to have a meeting without me, you need to have it in the other meeting room and not in this office, blah, blah, blah. And Fa tells him, well, you should get used to my meetings. So I was like, okay, well, we've got power struggles going on here.
I do. No, full stop. Don't like Fa. Done. I don't even want him to be redeemed. I know there are some of you out there, Jackie, who still want him redeemed. And it's good. He probably needs some people in his corner rooting for him to turn away from his dark ways. But I did crack up at the fact that when he leaves the room, he very pointedly pushes the chair in.
And Serkan hates it.
Even though Serkan actually likes that. He hates when people leave them.
Yeah.
But he's like, oh, so you are observant. Like, you do pay attention. You do catch on.
Yeah.
So, I just liked that little scene right there. Yeah. So then Edda's at home getting ready for the party tonight. And Ayfer helps her pick out a dress because she's got 3 laid out. And the one she winds up picking is the one that Serkan bought her. And Edda points that out to her like, oh, Serkan bought that. And she's like, so what? It's blue. It'll keep the evil eye away. Like, put it on and don't be ashamed to wear it. Like, you go there and you show it off. Like, so, which I actually kind of liked because I was afraid the second she heard Serkan bought it for her, she'd be like, burn it, like,
Yeah.
But I liked that's what she did. So now it's party time. And of course, we kind of touched on this a little bit. The assistant shows up and is, of course, getting her Engen fill. They, bets are made regarding asking her to coffee because Pearl's basically trying to prove a point to him. And we already know how that turns out. Like,
Ferry and Serkan are giving him a hard time. And they're like making fun of him. It's pretty funny. So Serkan goes to talk to Emre, and he ends up, as he's talking to Emre, is when Edda comes and he sees her. But he ends up getting the job.
Yes.
He convinces Emre pretty easily, it seems like. But he convinces him, and they officially have the job. So yay them.
Good job. So Edda walks by for like the 3rd time, and he basically goes after her after this because he has secured the job with Emre. So he's like, good talking to you. Fa does come up to him and basically is trying to make nice and congratulate him. And Serkan's like, yeah, okay, thanks. And you're the one that brought them in. So, but of course, Fa's trying to play that fake humility. Like, no, it wasn't, but you're the one that secured the job. That it was just a small part that I brought them in. Like, this is all you, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then he walks off and follows Edda right to her spot where she is. And basically they have a little conversation. And he walks up and says hi, and she just kind of looks at him, and he asks her what she's drinking, which I don't know why, but maybe because he still thinks she might be pregnant. And it's interesting because she's just having a soda water.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if that was just because she was like, I was just hungover after karaoke night and have no desire to like go there again. Or if that was supposed to be another thing that just eggs on like could she be pregnant? But I really don't think she is. And she says soda water. And he looks down and he says, did you wear this dress on purpose? And she's like, Hala chose it. And he's like, okay. And he's like, so what's going to happen with us, Edda? Like, we're always around each other. We're always working together. And she's like, well, just like it was before, that's how it's going to be. And he's like, but before that time, a lot of things happened and a lot of things have passed between us. And she says, are you afraid that those things will happen again, Serkan? And he says, aren't you afraid? And he says, another thing I don't understand, why are you working here? Like, of all the places to be working at, you're working here with us. And she says, well, I work with FA. So if he's working with you, then it's just a coincidence.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, I don't believe in coincidences, which Idon brought this up earlier too, when she's like, the baby's name is Serkan. And he's like, it's just a coincidence, Mom. And she's like, but you don't believe in coincidences.
Yep.
So he says, so I feel like that's going to come back up. Like,
yeah.
I don't believe in coincidences. And then she's like, well, the fact that there are so many other people here you could be talking to, but you're talking to me is not a coincidence. It's a choice.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, well, I had some questions for you. And she says, well, all your questions have one answer. Stay away from me. And then she walks off.
Yeah. So the party goes on. They do the coffee test, blah, blah, blah. And Serkan goes to tell Engin about the job. He's like, yay, we got the job. Awesome. Everything's exciting. And then there's a big crash.
Did you notice too, right before that, Serkan says something about he still has surprises up his sleeve? Like,
yeah, so he says that conversation was interesting.
Yeah.
With Engin. Where is it? I actually took screenshots.
Okay.
Like, oh, this is interesting.
Well, because Engin's kind of like, then, are you sure this doesn't have anything to do with Eda and FA working together and that relationship? Like, I was trying to figure out, like, what were they trying to point us to? Like,
yeah, because he says, Engin's all excited and he's like, okay, calm down. Don't get too excited. He's like, well, what is this arrogance? Of course, I'll be glad that we got the job. And Serkan says, okay, well, I still have surprises. And Engin's like, oh, are you kidding? And he says, he gets all excited. I work with the best man in the world. And then Serkan says, I wish I could say the same about FA. So it's like, okay, that's interesting. And then Engin asks, yeah, okay, well, is this related to Eda and FA's close relationship? And Serkan's like, oh, no. That's not at all. So I don't know if he has some, I don't know. I don't know if he has something else lined up for the company maybe that he's planning on
revealing.
Yeah, that he's kind of got his own tricks up his sleeve as far as progressing the company, and he doesn't necessarily need FA's connections to do well in the holding. Maybe that's kind of the whole point.
Yeah.
Because we know that Serkan is a really great businessman.
Right.
As well as a great architect. So he's kind of got both portions of that. And I think FA's whole thing has been he wants to earn trust with Serkan by bringing in business for the holding. Yeah. So I thought it was a very interesting, quick conversation that's cut short because then there's a very loud noise and a bunch of construction dust and things because basically part of the roof collapsed that they had been working on, which is not good. No.
Immediately after it happens and everyone's kind of shocked, like what just went on, we pan over to FA running into the bathroom and freaking out on the phone saying like, holy crap, oh no, like
I did it, but it was way bigger than what I planned on.
I did my part, but yeah, it was way more damage than I was expecting. It wasn't supposed to be this big, but don't worry, I'll fix it. So first of all, again, shows, well, you're a landscape architect, so of course you wouldn't know that making a tiny change in a set of plans could cause this huge thing. Now, I'm sitting here freaking out because at this point now, everyone's outside. Serkan's kind of away from everyone else, inwardly freaking out and stewing because this is a huge thing that's on him.
Yeah.
And, you know, Eda asks if there's anything she could do, and he doesn't really say anything. She's like, do you want to be left alone? And he says yes. So she was like, okay, I'll leave you alone. And she takes off. I'm sitting here thinking like, okay, he really must be flipping out, not just because this is the first time something like this has happened to him, but because of Eda. Because of Eda, like this has to scream familiarity with this could have hurt and killed people depending on how badly it went, like just like it did to her parents. Like, and I think it could be a catalyst for either way. I don't know yet. Either for him to maybe be a little more understanding towards his dad about what happened because now it happened to him, Or it could serve to do the exact opposite because Serkan, as we know, is not his father and does take responsibility for this, does not try to hide it, does not try to pawn it off on someone else. The irony in this being his dad did that when it actually was his fault. And Serkan is doing the opposite in taking responsibility, and it's not his fault. He just doesn't know that. So it just...
I thought this whole thing, I mean, obviously it's not good,
right?
But I was like, I think this is a good thing for as far as moving forward and moving the plot, because as we see in the end scene, when Ada is the only one sticking up for him, and Ada knows that he couldn't possibly have done something like this, this is going to prepare her for when the truth is revealed. And I think that it's also helping Serkan and almost bringing him to a breaking point with this whole situation, because he can only handle so much.
Right.
And not that I want him hurting, obviously.
No.
But I think that this is really going to end up being a catalyst as far as the truth coming out and all of these things, because Serkan was so adamant that he was the one to write up the blueprints. He was the one to lead this project, all of these things. And now, for all intents and purposes, this is his fault. Well, seemingly.
Yes. And even like when Emre and Asle show up at the office upset and clearly severing ties with him. Like, well, clearly we're not going to give you this job now. And of course, Serkan's like, I get it. I understand.
Right.
Even when because Efe's like, oh crap, I really screwed up. I wasn't supposed to screw my own friends over this badly.
Yep.
He's trying to fix it and try to make excuses. And Serkan's like, nope, do what you got to do. Even if you have to sue me. Like, you're going to you're going to sue me for this. I understand. Do what you have to. Like, he is just full on owning the fault, even though he still doesn't know how this happened. He's like, it doesn't matter. It was my project. It's my fault. So, you know, I actually, as much as it sucks because this is all Efe's fault and I hate him, I love that Serkan's like, no, I'm stepping up. Like, I'm taking responsibility. Now, after that happens, Efe kind of chases after his friends to seemingly, I'm assuming, try to smooth it over and not completely sever things. It's chaos. Serkan's in the office himself, obsessing over the plans, looking over it pointedly.
He looks like a caged tiger.
Yes, he does. I
feel so bad for him in this whole scene because he's so obviously losing it. He's so obviously flipping out. Because he's like, great, first this happened to Ada and her family, and it was my dad's fault. And now this has happened, and it's my fault. What if I could have hurt somebody? He's just spiraling at this point.
And their parents, he could have very well orphaned a baby. Like,
baby Serkan could have been up there.
So, you know, he's obsessing. Engin walks in and basically informs him, like, brother, I'm really sorry. It was I poured over everything, and it all boils back to an error in the drawings. Now, putting a pin in this really quickly. You know, when he said that, I was like, okay, first of all, I already mentioned, I need Celine's, you know, logic to come into play and go, that's weird that this happened right after Efe told me he was going to teach Serkan a lesson. I'm suspicious. So I need that. And I need them to pour over everything so carefully because Efe changed the plans at the office, which means Serkan's sent email will have the correct plans, and they will find the discrepancy in what Serkan sent and what was printed to at least prove that somebody changed something.
And likely his computer will have the original plans as well. And they'll be able to see
his laptop.
that there's a marked difference between the two. It should be an easy find. There's going to be evidence. Because it's a literal paper trail.
Exactly. So I need that to happen. And so Engin, though, is telling him, like, listen, man, you might have been distracted. You know, you were distracted with the whole thinking, like, Ada was pregnant. You had a lot going on yesterday. You're only human, which again ties into Efe's whole, oh, wow, you could get all these plans taken care of, even though you had all this stuff happening. Like, so, you know, it's like planting the stuff in his head that maybe he did let himself get distracted. And of course, now the news is blowing it up way out of proportion, talking about like a whole collapse rather than just like part of a roof. And Celine, I'm like,
Celine is sucking as a PR manager.
That's what I
She's
said.
like, I couldn't stop them from publishing the story. And it's like, okay.
Then what are you
really?
doing? Then
Yeah.
I know.
Then what good are you?
Exactly. So she and Peril are taking all these phone calls. Everyone's on edge.
Fifi and Ifer find out. They see it on the news.
Yes.
Fifi tells Idon. Of
Yes.
course, Idon is like, "Does anybody hurt? Were there any casualties?"
Yes.
And he explains, "No, everybody's fine. It just looks bad for the company."
So, and again, I wrote that, and here it's irony and growth because, again, you know, as Eda storms in, we'll go over that. But episode 1, Serkan, first of all, never admitted to mistakes.
Yeah.
And even if you found them, he still wouldn't. Like, and Layla basically had told Eda that. Mm-hmm. So you have episode 1 Serkan, who is like, yeah, no, I don't make mistakes. To this Serkan, who actually is owning it. And again, the irony being that it's actually not his own mistake, but just the growth in him even being willing to own it is amazing. And he starts losing it though. He's throwing stuff. He's forgetting. Everyone else is like, whoa, stay away. But not Eda. She's like, let's forge right into the fire. Yeah. And she runs in and she kind of grounds him because she runs in and she's like, Serkan, like yells. And he's like, what, Eda? Like kind of pulls him from his spiral a little bit. Yeah. And she's like, listen, you couldn't have done this. It's a misunderstanding. Mm-hmm. And he says, Eda, please leave. Like, please get out of here. And she's like, no, I'm not going to leave you alone. Yeah. And he says, please leave. And for him, because it's not, I don't even think it's because he doesn't want to see her. It's just because he's losing it and probably doesn't want her in the warpath.
Well, and he also is probably like, you of all people are the last person I want to see after I've made the same mistake that my father did.
Right.
That's probably his equation in his mind. Yes. He is now just as bad as his own father.
Yeah. And he says, get out. And she says, no. And she says, she's like, I know you. You couldn't have done that. There's some sort of mistake. Yeah. Now, again, not irony, but just showcasing how different they are. Mm-hmm. Because all evidence points to Serkan. Right now, Serkan made this huge mistake. This small mistake that made a huge consequence. And she immediately is like, no way, he didn't do this. Mm-hmm. It's totally different from what his reaction was when it looked like she had helped Khan. Yeah. Like, and I'm, you know, that's all been dealt with and he admitted his mistake there and all that. But just showcasing how different they are and how good she is for him because she believes the best in people. Yeah. And he clearly doesn't. Mm-hmm. And so this really showcases that because she says, I know you couldn't have done that. This is some kind of mistake. And he says, Eda, why are you doing this? Like basically, why are you trying to make me feel better about this? Yeah. And she says, because I believe in you, Serkan Bolat. Yeah. And he's like, well, you believe in the wrong person. And she's like, I'm not just talking about architecture. Mm-hmm. And she says, but regarding architecture, you are the best one in the world. And you are always preparing huge projects. You never could have made such a mistake like this. Mm-hmm. And he says, oh, I'm the best architect, right? And he like thrusts the plans. And he's like, then why am I doing such a stupid thing? And he like throws the papers again. And he's like, Eda, please just get out. Mm-hmm. And okay. And she says, no. And she grabs his arm. Yeah. And he says, Eda, I made a mistake. Mm-hmm. Please leave me alone. And she says, Serkan. And she like grabs his face. Now, funny thing is we actually got more of this scene in the fragment than we did in this actual scene. Because she doesn't finish her. Sorry, I just hit the mic if you guys heard that. She's about to say there's something. Right. But we don't see that here. She just grabs his face and the episode ends. They're just having some intense eye contact and she's, I think, just trying to ground him. Yeah. Physically and mentally because he's just spiraling, understandably so. So the episode ends. And so yeah, we end on quite literally a bang. Yeah. And you know, obviously we all thought initially like there's something, you're finally getting him to tell you like what happened, and that is not at all where this episode went. But like you said, it's moving other plot points forward, and again, hopefully it means that people are going to start putting things together and be like, okay, wait, let me go check on this. Let's look at that. And it gets found out. I certainly hope so.
Well, and I'm hoping that her reaction to this situation will finally maybe convince him and give him some peace of mind as to how she would react or even eventually come to grips with the truth about their families.
Yes.
Because she is sticking up for him right now.
Yes, she is.
And she believes in him, and it doesn't matter. And she, even though, again, for all intents and purposes, it looks like it is his fault, she's still not upset. She's still not blaming him. Nope. So the fact that it was his father's fault, I think this should be just more proof of how she would react to the truth.
Yes. But yeah, because if she's already defending him when, with the information that's available, shows that it's his fault, like you say, why wouldn't she even be more understanding when it's something he's removed from?
Yep.
The only thing is that he's related to the person who did this, you know?
Right.
So yeah, I think you're right that it's like, hopefully this will show him like, it's going to either show him that, yeah, she has this understanding in her heart, or it's just going to further prove to him that he doesn't believe an angel like that who's just so good. And so, you know what I mean? Like, it's going to do one of those two things.
Unworthiness.
Right. Because we all know he struggles with those feelings.
Yeah.
So about those fragments, okay, they're like killing it with the fragments lately because last week's were really, really good. Except for the fact that it spoiled the final scene. This week's, I'm almost positive, do not spoil the final scene.
For once.
For once. And I kind of love that they did them backwards. Like, the second fragment had more of the beginning of the episode in it because we see Edda in these same clothes. So I like that they kind of mixed up the timelines a little bit. And just, again, I feel like we're entering into a new chapter here. Like, the feel, the music, the season, the fact that even Serkan's moving, all of that feels very like, okay, we're kind of closing a chapter here and moving into something else, which I'm ready for.
Yeah.
And like somebody pointed out too, because they talk about how it's fall. And, you know, I immediately, when they're in that first fragment, when they're talking and he's talking about how fall kind of basically is like an ending. It's sad. It's, you know, like things are ending. It's over because the leaves are falling off the trees. I love how Edda points out to him that actually it's the opposite. What you're thinking is a sadness is actually a miracle. It's not an end, but a beginning. And Serkan says, then maybe nothing is as it seems. And this person, Lena on Twitter, whose tweet was sent to me by Evie or Evie, I'm not sure which way you say your name. But this person said, it's really important that it's Serkan is the one who says that autumn feels like an ending because it's Serkan who said it's over, meaning between the two of them. And Edda saying, no, it's a miracle. It's not an ending, but a beginning. She says, like, it's like Serkan is autumn himself because nothing is as it seems. He's not really a robot. He does know how to love. He's not cold and ruthless. He took care of Layla, her sister. He donates money to the orphanage, saved iFair's shop. But he's hiding something from Edda. And he's, and right now, he's hiding his feelings. And then when he realized he would lose her, he finally told her that he was in love with her, the ending of episode 11. And she says, once again, he's hiding something now, even though he's buried it, Edda can feel it because Edda sees him with her heart. And she's like, and then this person, which magically brings us back to the story of the little prince. It's only in the heart that one can see rightly. What is essential is invisible to the eye. It says, Serkan is autumn, Edda is spring. He is the star. She is the sun. He's the little prince. She's the fox. So I liked that. I like that because, and I also immediately thought of that. I think it's a Robert Frost quote. Life starts all over again when it gets crisp in the fall, like that whole thing. So, and then again goes with the whole number 159 thing, portions that are ending and new beginnings. So
black roses.
So I really think that like this is supposed to be a turning point in the show for us.
Yeah.
This coming week. And so, yeah. And then somebody named Serena sent us her thoughts about Baba and Serkan, which they kind of go with a few things that I was saying. But she says, we see a bit of parallelism in which Serkan and others, except for Edda, believe that the collapsing of the walls in that house that night was his fault. And Alptekin also believing that the walls collapsing for Edda's parents is his fault, even though, I mean, it is, but it isn't in the sense that like it's the person's shoddy work that did it.
Right.
And for that reason, Serkan might be able to understand his father since he had this situation happen to him now and maybe eventually forgive him. But we also know that Serkan's not at fault here. And since his story and his father's stories, we see some parallelism. We might also eventually see that the main reason why those walls collapsed was not Alptekin's fault either, and maybe get him some forgiveness as well. Not only that, but we know that Efe and his secret partner are the main reason why Serkan's walls collapsed. So Efe and his partner might also be at fault for the walls collapsing on Edda's parents as well. Now, I don't know about that only because I think Efe's kind of young. So I don't know. But it would be interesting to find out that maybe if his partner isn't Baba Ane, like we're all thinking, what if his partner also had a hand in what happened to Edda's parents? Like,
right. I mean, their new competition is supposedly a second generation architect,
right?
So maybe him and the dad and Alptekin also had a rivalry, like the other Khan and his father. And maybe there's like all of these rivalries in the architecture community.
Well, and again, this whole don't believe in coincidences, how coincidental that they were very similar accidents, different consequences because Serkan's was on a much smaller scale, thank God.
Right.
But yeah, like, so I love all the theories floating around out there. And someone even wrote on Twitter, like, you know, do we maybe think that Serkan moving closer to Edda's school, because we've learned that apartment is right by her school, her university, where she'll be back at. Someone says that it kind of smells of the doctor who like bought that house and moved next door to the woman that he loved.
Oh, yeah.
So that he could be near her. So I was like, ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
So I think it was someone named Eva on Twitter who kind of like pointed that out. So I don't know, a lot of good things. What do you have to say about the whole Celine thing? Like,
I think it's a misdirect.
I do too. Because it's like, okay, your house.
We've been down this road. We know that Celine isn't interested. I could see Edda having an issue with them living together because, you know.
Well, yeah.
That's
well, and while we know
Serkan
doesn't have feelings for her, we also know that he lets logic drive him.
Right.
So like she could be concerned about his logic telling him to be with her, especially because we know Celine would probably welcome him back because she has made it very clear he's like been the most important person to her. He'll always be that way. She'll always love him. He was her first love, all this stuff. But yeah, people were like freaking out and I'm like, listen, I think it's a misdirect. Maybe she'll wind up staying in Serkan's old house on the actual Bolat property.
Right.
Which would then, again, make the whole like, oh, Celine's at your house. And he'd be like, yeah, she's at my house, but it's not the house I'm living in right now. Like maybe that's what the end of that sentence is.
Right.
And honestly, if there's going to be some kind of maybe jealous plot, like I'd honestly rather it be with her because we know that's not going to go anywhere than some new character showing up to like make Edda jealous. So I'm not really worried about it. I'm more excited about Idon actually showing up to his house. What happens with him and Edda in that bookstore when they are making eyes at each other over the shelves. Their walk home, that whole conversation rather than just the portions of it. I don't know. I just feel like there's a big shift coming and I'm excited to see what it is. And I'm not hopeful for her finding out about her parents. But I am hopeful that like we're going to see some positive changes that are leading to not only her finding out about that at some point, but Efe being found out, because this was just like you crossed a major line. Like the fact that you willingly put people in danger just because you thought you knew what you were doing, like it's just so devious and like ugh. So like, there's no excuse. Like, there's absolutely no excuse. And it just makes me want to know who the heck his partner is even more. Like, even though I think it's grandma, it very well could not be. It could be an entirely different competitor. So, anyways. I think that's everything. And if not, oh, well, there's like, I always feel like I have so many theories and stuff that, like, I can't possibly remember them all. But anyways, so yeah, we'll be back, of course, next week, you guys, after Volume 18 airs. I'll miss probably getting to live watch with you all this week, but I'm very excited to watch the episode when it does drop. And just a quick reminder, all of our social media links and everything are in the episode notes. You can also become a subscriber to North America 10, one of our new affiliate partners. They post reviews and recaps and subtitle fragments for not just Sensual Kapımı, but several other Dizis, and translate a lot of interviews and things like that for a lot of our favorite stars. So check out their link below, and you can find them all over social media as well. But yeah, we'll be back next week with volume 18. So until next time,
Görüşürüz.
Hoşça kal.